Good evening, folks, and welcome to this meeting of the Norfolk Planning Board. It is Thursday, March 14th. It is about 7:45 p.m. Please be advised that this meeting is being video and audio taped. We have a few items of business here this meeting which are being deferred to most likely our next meeting. One was to be a discussion regarding Fern Ridge Estates and a request for additional lot releases. And the other item, which will be deferred, is an update from Bob McGee, our DPW director. So that does give us some time before our public hearing for 242 Dedham Street. That's a continuation of a public hearing for a site plan modification, which is going to be taking place in about 15 minutes. So that being the case, we're fortunate this evening to have our chief, fire chief, here this evening, and he'd like to speak to us, speak to the board, and speak to all of you. And so I'll welcome the chief to the table. If you'd like, feel free to take a seat. Thank you for joining us. So this is Chief Cole. Thank you.
First of all, Mr. Chairman, I can't thank you enough in gratitude for the opportunity to appear at your meeting and have the opportunity to speak here before the board this evening. The message I wanted to carry here tonight from the fire department is we'd like to see and certainly like to hope and at least express our situations in terms of looking at our community as a whole as projects come forward to the community. We'd like to think that as a project is brought forward, particularly planning board or any of the boards, that it creates a level of enthusiasm, creates a situation where the applicant is embraced from the standpoint of shown cooperation and certainly shown what can be done in terms of total operation to bring a project to fruition in Norfolk. During the 9 years that I've been your fire chief, I've had the privilege really to review 56 projects in the community. And out of those 56, 29 of them have never gone to construction. And certainly the economy probably plays a great deal of role in that. Some of the other aspects of working in a small community perhaps enter in as well. Over the last 3 years, those numbers have decreased from that 56. I think over the last 3 years, only about 8 projects have made it into the fire department for review, and out of those, 5 have not moved on. As we look at the community as a whole, as a totality, our concerns at the fire department are strictly from the standpoint of fiscal sustainability. Brought with us tonight, Lieutenant Paramedic Mike Finland and Firefighter Paramedic Seth Hamilton with the equipment that they use in the community. When we deliver services in the community, there's a great deal of fiscal backup that takes place with us. The new stretcher, which you as a community have been gracious enough to provide for us, is close to $36,000. The LifePak heart monitor that the paramedics use as the analytical tool to determine what of the 64 pre-hospital care medical operations or medical procedures that can be conducted in the field are utilized. That's $32,000 alone, and we have 2 of those because we have 2 advanced life support ambulances. As more projects come forward to the community, obviously that translates into a much easier ability for us to provide the service to you. So the message I want to close with here tonight is I would hope, I would enthusiastically ask the board's cooperation, continued cooperation, that as projects come forward, that we do everything that we can from a community standpoint to ensure that we can bring these projects to construction phase. Obviously, the planning board plays a very important role in this development process. You're looking at a myriad of items that take place in the development, more so than the real tunnel vision that the fire department has in terms of life safety, in terms of apparatus reaching the site, in terms of what phases of construction will take place, such as blasting going to be involved. I had the privilege of serving with Bob Nicodemus on the master plan development in the last review. And one of the things that was talked about explicitly in that was to create a facility, a mechanism to ensure that we have the development take place in the areas, particularly commercial areas that are out there on Dedham Street, in our town center. So if we could do that, I, as your fire chief, would be elated, and I'm sure that the people who bring the plans forward would be equally as enthusiastic. A number of years ago, we started, when I first came here to your community in 2004, 2005, we started vetting projects from the standpoint of a project review committee where we had representation from the planning board, zoning, Concom, DPW, police and fire, and we basically assisted or did pre-plan reviews or pre-project reviews before the project came forward in a means to expedite the entire process. Perhaps that's something that we could review as a community to try to assist other people coming in and give us an opportunity, perhaps through economic development, to wave the banner that come to Norfolk, we welcome you with open arms, we give you a fair shot, and we're enthusiastic about having your project come forward. And with that, I want to thank the board sincerely for the opportunity to be here this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm not sure if we're able to get on camera the stretcher, but you're able to get that?
She's got
So
cameras everywhere.
It's certainly impressive equipment. And so how new is that equipment?
It's been in service now for a week.
Mm-hmm. 1 week.
And it's been already probably in about 20, 25 runs. And our goal is to make sure that no one in this board has the opportunity to sit on that stretcher, obviously.
I was on your old one.
You'll like this one much better, Steve.
I must say I was concerned when I saw the stretcher out there. I came up the stairs about 20 minutes ago. I was a little concerned.
Well, you got to
Yeah,
remember, I'm just a
incident.
short little guy, so I can't inflict any damage, that's for sure.
Well, your folks do a great job.
Thank you
and
very
do
much,
a
Mr.
great
Thank
job,
you very
so
much.
thank you
Appreciate
so
the time.
much.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, guys. So we have a few minutes here before the continuation of our public hearing for 242 Dedham Street. In terms of, yeah, we probably should do that. Actually, I did.
Oh, did you? Okay. I must have been zoning out.
So one of the things that we'll need to know at some point this evening is dates for next meeting. So maybe we should take a look at that. And I'm not sure if Andrea had given you any feedback, but I think we're going to have to know that.
We need to also schedule a public hearing for our zoning articles, Jeff.
When is town meeting? What's the date of it?
7th?
I
May
believe it's the
7th?
7th, yes.
So we should probably have it 2 weeks from tonight, right?
That doesn't give me enough time, so 3 weeks would be better. We could either do it April 4th or April 11th.
Well, it may be worth actually having two meetings, have one in 2 weeks and another one two weeks later.
Well, it's one hearing. You'd have to continue it or advertise it twice.
Yeah, I mean, just to deal with business at hand. I mean, we've got the 242 Dedham Street project. We've got, there's some discussion, I'm sure, on these zoning articles. I'm not sure whether we're going to get through that this evening.
Schedule the next regular meeting, so we could do the 28th. And then April 11th.
Are folks available another evening the week of the 25th other than the 28th?
You know, that's getting into kind of an Easter vacation. I don't know if it affects anyone.
Monday, Thursday.
Monday?
Monday, Thursday.
Wednesday's
Is that
not
Holy
good for
Thursday?
me.
What?
Is Tuesday an option, or is that, I'm not sure your schedule on a Tuesday, is that out?
26th, I have a conflict on the 26th.
Yeah, the 28th, I'd like to avoid the 28th if possible.
There's nothing stopping us from meeting 2 weeks in a row if we have to.
Yeah, yeah.
So we could do it the following week,
The 4th?
the 4th, yeah.
That's fine with me.
If we can avoid that week, I've got a Board of Health meeting. Meeting 2 nights is very difficult.
Do you guys even do anything at your meetings?
Big farms.
I'm available the 11th.
That's right.
I'm just coming back from a business trip, but
How about what did we say? What?
the 11th.
The 11th?
Well,
And
yeah,
then we can
I thought that we
schedule
had
that.
wanted to have 2. Didn't we want to have 2
we
during
can-
that period?
When we see how tonight goes.
Oh, okay,
whether we
yeah.
need the second one, okay? So let's plan on April 11th.
Okay.
Is April 11th going to be the date for the public hearing?
Try and do that. Yeah, we wouldn't want to do it any later than that, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Do you think they got a call as they were leaving?
I think it's for show.
He's showing off his new stretcher.
Okay. It's just about 8 o'clock.
Can I just ask, before we get into it, as relatively new to the town itself and very new to the board, is the perception that the reason we've only gotten 8 applications in the last 5 years because of the planning board?
Oh, 8 applications has nothing to do with the planning board.
Well, I kind of get the feeling like that's the sentiment of the statement.
But I think that the chief is, he is just concerned that without some more substantial development, that the town services are going to continue to be challenged. And I think to Steve's comment in terms of the number of applications and such, I mean, my personal opinion is that's a reflection of the economy. I
Would
think
agree.
Tom has made some statements in the past because of his experience in other towns. I think you had made some comments about Canton not too long ago. And, there's just hasn't been a whole lot of activity in most towns.
The Canton Planning Board, in the course of a typical year, we probably open 20 projects. Last year, we opened 1.
So I guess my reason for asking it is, he wrote us a specific letter regarding 242 Dedham.
Mm-hmm.
And then came tonight speaking on a more broader level,
Mhm.
so I can embrace the broader level enthusiasm. Where I start to feel a little offended is, I didn't feel like there was any spirit of our conversation that was not enthusiastic or supportive of 242 Dedham. And so I'm connecting
Mhm.
the two because we've got his letter, and then right after he makes a presentation. And I don't know if there's a perception of something different that came out of our meeting than what I reviewed on the meeting minutes, than what I lived during the meeting.
Well, it's budget time, I think. They're going through their budgets right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I equate it to. It's another difficult year, I'm sure, in terms of choices for departments within the town.
Even going back to when he first started here, anyone that brought up a project, because he comes from a larger community in Connecticut, which he always had budget problems and things like that, and he is always the first guy to say, let's go. I'll come down there and help you out on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That is his personality.
Mhm.
That's all. He just wants to try, because he knows. I mean, a municipal budget. Ask anyone that's managing a municipal budget in this town or any town right
Right.
now, especially the public safety. He takes, I mean, if anything, Cole takes his job so seriously, he fears for the town. And he's the guy that, rather than put on additional people, he'll be the one responding when there's normally a firefighter's job, because he knows we just can't afford it. I wouldn't take it any more than his long-standing enthusiasm for any development.
Okay.
That's all. And that's his personality.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. So this is the continuation of the site plan modification discussion and public hearing for 242 Dedham Street. So Al, I see you here this evening. Is your engineer here? Behind you. Welcome. So would you guys like to just bring the board up to speed in terms of what's transpired? It's been 2 weeks, I think exactly 2 weeks, I think, since you came before us. And I know that you've been in contact with Mr. Houston. And so we'll be hearing from him shortly, but please.
Microphone, please. Basically,
Microphone.
Yeah, thank you.
my name's Evan Wilmarth with the Dover Land Surveying Company. At the last meeting, there was several comment letters from both Tom from PSC and from Gino, and on top of it, there was a comment letter from the fire chief and the director of the DPW, which after the meeting, we sat back and went over the plan and made not major, but we made all the minor modifications concerning 99% of the comments made by all the consultants for the planning board, and have come up with a final set of plans which the town received back on Monday, along with revised drainage reports. Basically, the major modifications was we did include a bypass lane. Originally, Tom had recommended a 20-foot bypass, 20-foot wide roadway around the side and the back of the building.
Evan, 1 second. Do you have a print that we can take a look at here?
Oh, I can get you.
Just so we can throw it out here? 1 sec, that's all. Just so we can see it. Betsy's copy is the updated one, Evan?
Oh, the plans?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you could. I just want to get a quick look. How's that? Oh, you have a small one?
11 there.
Yeah.
1.5s.
As I was saying, one of Tom's major recommendations was to include a 20-foot wide roadway around the side and the back of the building to incorporate a bypass lane for the drive-through. What we did, and we discussed it with Tom, was we made the bypass lane 18 feet wide in the back of the building. However, we did not include it along the side because both in the back and the side there is some grading issues, and we felt that it was not necessary along the side as it would only contain 3 cars, but we still allow full bypass along the back of the building. He also recommended a special part that at least one parking spot be designated for special orders, which we have done. He recommended, originally we had 2 areas designated for the vacuum area plus 1 for the air station, and he recommended reducing that to combination of just 2 areas, thereby making the drive-through more accessible, which we have done. Otherwise, there was just mainly some minor modifications, rewording, revision of numbers, and some revisions on the drainage, which has all been done incorporating the new design of the roadway. We just today received a letter from the Design Review Board concerning some minor modifications that they may have concerning the design of the building. The majority of them are just very minor and basic, like basic issues like widening the dormers on the front of the building and getting rid of the cupola and maybe adding some trim on the canopy. But otherwise, we have addressed every issue that was brought up by Tom, by Gino, by the director of this Public Works, by the fire chief, everybody. And they basically are all incorporated into the revised plans.
Do you have a parking space count from the building commissioner yet?
No, we do not. However, we did revise the calculations based on revising the plan. And the original plan we had, it was calced out that we only needed 24 parking spaces and we supplied 28. However, because there's an ambiguity in the language that the parking spaces be determined by usable floor area, and there is no definition in the town bylaws, and it's very ambiguous in the building code. What we did, what was done was we gave every unit a bathroom, a utility room, and a small storage area, and then took the rest of the space allotted and called that usable floor area, even though the majority of it on like these two units, which are going to be for the food service, almost half of it is going to be counter space, storage space, and workspace. So the usable floor area for the public is half of what we're calculating. And it ends up that, as Tom said, if we recalculated everything, we would probably still meet the criteria of the 28 parking spaces, which we had proposed and which we still have. And that was the final number we came up with.
Okay. Before we hear from Mr. Houston, I think one of the things that was not totally clear had to do with curbing, particularly with the bypass road and such. Is that
Vice Plan, as I noted, on the entrance and exit at Sharon Ave, we're going to have slope granite curbing on the entrance and exit into the property to the PC. And then from there, all the curbing within the property will be vertical concrete curbing. At the entrance to Dedham Street, it has been changed from slope granite curbing to vertical granite curbing per the state highway regulations.
Okay, so with the bypass road, and I appreciate you including that, by the way, so along the back edge of the property, is that going to be a vertical curb? Is that?
Well, after discussing it with the applicant, because we're only providing an 18-foot wide roadway in the back, even though that's wide enough for two cars, along the back stretch of the building, we're proposing a slope curb, so that way if anybody does have to make an emergency exit and use the bypass area, they'll be going up against a slope curb instead of a vertical curb and possibly blow a tire.
Now, you have like a 3-foot or so drop off, 3 or 4 feet, correct? Just beyond the
From-
sloped granite curb?
From the edge of the road, there's a 6-inch high, concrete curb. Then there's a 2-foot wide area at a 3-to-1 slope, and then there's a concrete retaining wall, which runs anywhere from 1 foot in height to a maximum of 3 foot 10 inches.
Okay, and the retaining wall, is it going to, extend beyond the surface of the ground there? Is it going to be
It's-
elevated
it's
to
low-
provide a restraint, if you will?
It's lower than the roadway. So the roadway's going to be up here, then it goes down about 10 inches. Then there's the retaining wall, which it runs anywhere from 1 foot to 3 foot 10 inches high.
Do you have a guardrail or something there, or?
There's not one proposed. It could be added. Originally, we were thinking of putting it on, but we weren't sure whether or not. Originally, it was only going to be put in around the curve when we were thinking of maybe making this on the side at the 18 feet wide to allow full bypass all the way around.
Okay.
But on the,
We can pick that up maybe when Mr. Houston goes through some of the items. We'll pick that up and see if we can come to some.
I mean, we have no problem
Resolutions.
adding the guardrail if the board requires.
Okay. Okay, so maybe we'll hear from Mr. Houston here and see where that takes us. How's that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did go through the plans, and the applicant was very responsive in answering all of our comments, both in language and in plan revisions. So I'll just mention the ones that I believe are still outstanding, and some of them are pretty minor in nature. Comment number 3, I did not see where you added the snow storage areas. I mean, it looks like there's plenty of space for it. I just didn't see anything labeled snow storage, but,
I believe you'll find. I believe you'll find it either on the landscape plan or, actually, it's on the erosion control plan. It should have been on another one. Well, we're designating one area out in the front. The parking area is a snow storage area with the inclusion that all the snow storage is temporary only, and that all accumulated snow will then be removed off-site by the applicant.
yeah, I did see that in your written response, but I did not see that area on that sheet. I guess the next one would be number 11, and I'm not sure we accurately identified the issue in our comment. This is about the driveway separation. I don't think you accurately identified it in your answer. So we looked at the whole thing, and I think the conclusion is that what we have here is an interim drive. The required separation on interim drives per section J4A4C is 150 feet, and you comply with that. So I think it's a non-issue. But just to clarify that, because we incorrectly raised it in the first place. Comment number 19, I think there was some misunderstanding of our comment. What we were recommending, and if you can do it before the board endorses the plans, that would be good. We're recommending a coordination meeting with Mass DOT. I think there was, your response dealt with handicapped access. So we were talking about an access permit for Mass DOT to access the site because it's a state highway layout. So we just wanted you to have a coordination meeting to make sure they're okay with the entrance. I don't know why they wouldn't be, but
Yeah, we actually have filed for the access
Oh, you
permit
have? Oh,
with
great.
the Mass
Okay.
Highway Department. And just to bring you up to speed, the design of the access is identical to the same one that Mr. DiMartino got approval for. So we feel that there should be no issue with the,
I think that's correct. I just wanted to make sure we didn't approve a plan that had to get changed. Comment number 24. I talked to Mr. McGee today, and he requested a wall across the entire front of the site so that he could put, he's agreed to put the sidewalk in, but he wants to put it right at the property line, so there's the maximum separation from the traveled way for safety purposes. So he was looking for a wall along the site so he could do that. Or I suppose alternatively, grade it down at that point, but he wanted it at the future sidewalk level, right at the property line.
well, to address that, we have shown on the revised grading plan, we've added in a proposed extension to the existing retaining wall that is there right now, which will be a block wall with a veneer face similar to what is down at Rocco Plaza. As far as up on the Sharon's Ave side of the entrance, you're talking less than a 9-inch difference from the existing grade to what would be the finished grade.
Well,
And
you know,
by
again,
the-
I'm
by
sort
the
of
grade-
passing that
yeah.
comment along. But,
By the grading we're doing, we will bring it down to proposed base grade for
Right.
the future
This was the same
sidewalk.
thing we discussed on the prior plan on this site, right? That Bob was gonna do the sidewalk and,
Yeah, I think it's gone back and forth a couple of times, but in speaking with Mr. McGee today, his current position is that the town will install the sidewalk. He just wants the subgrade prep to the right elevation, so he can commit
because
to
I did a
that,
site
so.
visit with Bob on this site back on the prior iteration of the plan.
Correct.
And that's when Bob said he was going to build those sidewalks, so.
And Bob shared that same comment that Tom just relayed. He shared that to me as
Okay.
well. So at least in his mind, he's envisioning a stone wall in order to have the necessary depth, if you will, to install a proper sidewalk.
Was your
So-
interpretation from Bob that he needed it the entire length or just on the easterly edge, if you will, as he's pointing out with his extended wall?
Well, just based on my conversation with Bob, it's the entire length,
entire
but
length.
whether or not that's in fact the case, we may need to take a look at that.
Evan, did you bring up the fact that the opposite side, I guess it's east and west, the westerly side is just a foot high or less
Well,
on the finish?
on the finished grading,
Yeah.
the area to the westerly side of the entrance, you're talking less than 8 inches, which actually, when we're grading it out, it will be brought to, at the property line, what would be the proposed finished grade of the sidewalk.
Again, you know, since you're working with Bob on this, I think just to maximize his concern for setting it back as much as possible, I think he should clarify that with him.
Yep.
Okay, the the next one I have is 27, and this is just really a decision the board's going to have to make. They did add the gasoline delivery truck to the landscaping plan, and it is shown parallel to the parking spaces so that cars could get by it. However, to get into that position, you have to pull the truck forward and back it into that position. So it's just a couple of maneuvers. The original, if you just moved into the site, just drove it into the site, the truck bellies out when it takes a turn, and it sort of would be parked at an angle and it would block the egress. So the question is, can we rely on the driver to back into that position, or would the board want to require off-hours delivery to make sure that the egress isn't blocked? My judgment would be that the driver will understand he has to back into that position, but that was kind of before, so, and we hadn't seen the fill locations before, so that's something the board can consider.
I mean, it's a site that we have, we worked around at Daly's on, I mean, not a site, but a situation we worked around on Daly's on, and I think that's a lot tighter site than this.
Well, also, if I might make a comment, is per your comment letter, Tom, you suggested to show the truck on the plan to show where it would situate, but you also made a recommendation that depending on where it ended up, that all deliveries be night deliveries.
Correct, yeah.
And that note has been added onto the plan.
I mean, it may not be necessary to do that. It's kind of the board's judgment. There are some sites where, you just have to close it for the deliveries. We didn't know on this one. Now that I see where the truck is, it's fine. The only issue is it requires a couple of back and forth. So I'm leaving it up to the board, but my own judgment would be it should be all right. You don't need night delivery, but
All right, thank you.
let's see.
A question on that, is that just striped pavement next to where the,
Yeah,
This-
that's the
yeah,
parking
yeah.
spaces.
okay. Yeah, but where the, directly adjacent to where the loading zone is that just striped pavement
That's
there,
just
that
striped
wedge?
pavement.
That wedge, okay.
Yes,
okay.
it is.
So I guess the next one is number 40. We had asked for spot grades at the rear door, which were provided, but the spot grades show you have to step down an entire foot to get to the drive-through lane elevation. So there needs to be some kind of second step added in there somehow. So you did respond, but I think it just needs to be. The detail needs to be worked out.
Basically, what we did is, because of the elevation of the slab, which is 2085, we set the concrete pads for the walkout doors at 208.45, which is
Right.
only a half inch.
But it looks like
And-
it's halfway between the
but-
208 and the 207 in there, so it's about 207
But-
and a half at that point, I think.
Well, actually, the spot grades are the grades on the pavement.
Right.
So then there's 6 inches of curbing. So when you go the 20 feet or so each way, it ends up that the grade is like 2078 at the entry on the pavement next to the curb, next to the concrete pad. So you're only looking at about a 6 or 7 inch step.
Well, we'll take another look at that, but I thought it was a foot. But we'll take a look at that. Okay, number 44. What they're proposing in the rear there is a large concrete block retaining wall. The block's a 2 foot by 2 foot by 6 foot long, and that they'll be anywhere from 2 feet to 4 feet visible on the adjacent commercial property. There's a note been added to the drawings, and this is new. It's a split face type of finish on the wall, and it's color red. I don't know whether either the design review committee or this board wants any additional information about like a picture of the specific color or what it looks like. As I say, a lot of times you wouldn't be concerned, but in this case it does face another commercial site, and everybody coming down Sharon Ave will be able to see it. So whether we have sufficient information or want more, we'll certainly leave that up to the board's judgment. Comment number 45, they did add hay bales to the drawing in specific locations. It seemed, though, they probably should also be on the front and side of the site. In other words, along 1A and Sharon's Ave, because the site grades slope down to those streets, so you may get some erosion going into the streets. So I thought maybe the hay bale line should be extended. And I guess that brings us to comment 46, and we talked about this before. There are 4 catch basins at the site entrance. The upper 2 feed back into an oil water separator, which is consistent with DEP practice. The final 2 don't have a separator structure, They drain a small portion of the site. So the two questions are, one is kind of policy, and I guess this site technically isn't subdivided, except to the extent that the planning board regs require that policy to be applicable to the site. I think Mr. Wilmar had raised the issue that in terms of normal runoff, or maybe in terms of even a spill, the upper two catch basins would catch most of the contaminants, and therefore a separator structure is not necessary on the last two on the site. But that's, again, a matter of judgment. If you put it in, it's going to add an additional level of safety, particularly with respect to spills. The only disadvantage is cost. And I don't know whether you have a particular dollar figure on the separator. I think you're using storm scepters, I believe. So they're probably $4,000 for this structure to catch a relatively small area of pavement, but alternatively it's a service station. So it's just a matter of policy that the board's going to have to take a position on. Comment number 52, 53, 54. I did check our current file, and I did check the prior project file, and I think we had a lot of discussion about the availability of soils data here. I took a look at the septic data, both on this site and on the adjacent site, and it does look pretty consistent in terms of it being granular material and in terms of the groundwater being deep. The only concern I have is kind of legal, which is right now the project file does not contain any test data. The engineer verbally stated they considered this, but I think they should at least submit the logs of the test pits they considered in making their determination of permeability and groundwater elevation. I don't think we necessarily, I strongly advocated testing. I'd be delighted if they did it, but I think there is consistency in terms of the soils data across the site. Unfortunately, right now, it's not in our files. So.
Question, Tom. I could see if this was a press application, but where this is a modification, I mean, did you have the test data previously in the?
No, I actually checked the prior file, and I think it was conveyed verbally that they had considered this other test data, but it was not in the prior file either.
You know, I think if there were to be concern, the reason why there would be is because I think there's very few options in terms of where that can be located. So, you know, if there were to be a problem, that could create a major issue. But you know, most likely there isn't a problem, but I think there's going to be few options available in terms of alternate locations.
Well, basically, the information we used was, as far as the design standard and the groundwater information, was all the information that was done on Mr. DiMartino's property, as it shows here on this plan. He had borings in the existing drainage basin, 95 feet back from where we're proposing. He has another drainage basin 100 feet over there. There's also all the testing for the proposed septic system, plus borings and testings done right along the property line adjacent to where we're setting the system. And all those results basically show the same soil conditions, same groundwater elevations, same permeability rates, and the testing we did for the septic system on the property, all the test holes except for one, we dug as deep as we could go and found absolutely no indication of water except for one. And that one hole, the top 8 feet of it was all fill. So it was a depression that had been filled in. And there was probably some sort of fill material in there containing some water. Mm-hmm. 15 feet away, we got 8 feet, 4 or 5 feet below that, and had absolutely no indication of water. So we're very confident that as far as the groundwater elevation, we have no issues. As far as the permeability, again, as Tom said, the soil logs between this site and the abutting site are consistent and almost identical. You know. And as far as the permeability rate that we use to determine the loading for the drainage, there was actually about 3 permeability tests done on Mr. DiMartino's, and we used the lowest rate that was obtained, not the highest.
I don't disagree with that at all. My only comment is that that information should be submitted with a transmittal letter so it becomes part of the project record, because right now there's nothing there.
I have no problem putting that together and getting it to you.
Thank you. Great. Comments number, let's see, 55 through 58. I did not find a copy of the supplemental drainage calcs that you did. I know you gave them to or you gave a package to Mr. Sanderson. He's been out for the past couple of days. He just had his first child, so he took a couple of days off. So I couldn't talk to him directly. I checked. We usually log things in, and I checked the file. I didn't see drainage calcs in either location, so I apologize if I missed those, but I just left those as open items. So if you can get us another copy, we'd be pleased to take a look at them. So, or we'll find, if we did get them, we'll find them when Dave gets back.
Well, just so you know, when Mr. Quagliari and I went over there to drop them off, I dropped off the plans and the revised drainage
Okay,
calcs.
well then we.
But
I don't
I'm
know
more
what
than
happened to
willing,
them,
I can get you another copy tomorrow if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay. I guess that brings us to comment 65. And thank you for adding those additional observation ports. I didn't see the detail though of how they be adjusted to grade. I assume they're a manhole cover with.
What I have is on the utility, actually on the detail plan, is I have a note. That the inspection ports are to be field adjusted to 2 feet from finished grade with H20 concrete risers, and then finished off with rims, H20 rims and covers
Oh,
to
right.
finish grade
Fine, that's fine.
per the detail for
Yep.
the manholes.
Okay, so I think that's it. The only 2 things I wanted to mention are a couple of supplemental items. For the set that the board actually endorses, we're going to need a wet stamp set with original signatures, and I presume at this point you don't have a particular gasoline company lined up. Usually on a gasoline service station, you see a lot of detail that isn't on these plans, so I thought that was something that should be submitted. I'm sure it would be anyway, but it should be submitted before building permit, and we suggested that a condition of approval be that prior to building permit, that final design plans be submitted showing the gasoline tanks, the fill piping, and the alarm systems, the dispensers and the dispenser islands, including the protective bollards and the canopy fire suppression system. So, again, that would be prior to building permit as a condition of approval. So, thank you. Appreciate your response, and I'll respond to any questions if the board members have it.
Okay, so I captured a few items that we probably should circle back and discuss. In terms of the stone wall, I mean, can we agree that at the end of the day, it needs to be what it needs to be in terms of where the grades end up and what Bob McGee feels is necessary for the sidewalk that he plans to install? So I think if you're agreeable to, if it's the whole site, it's the whole site. If it's half the site, whatever it is, once we get far enough along in terms of the grades and such. And I see Mr. Quagliari shaking his head, so.
No, we have no issues with that. As I say, on the DiMartino side of our proposed access, we go anywhere from, 2.5 down to 1 foot high, and we're proposing on the extension of the existing retaining wall, and that wall will be on our property. To the westerly side of the proposed entrance, the proposed grade at the property line will be the grade of the finished sidewalk. And in the highway layout, we will drop that grade down to base so the town will be able to build the sidewalk down the road.
Okay. Okay. And the block wall, I mean, back to Mr. Houston's point that, not only are there other businesses in the park, which is a good thing, but there's also residences there. There's about a handful of homes on Sharon. So in terms of, whatever can be done as far as that retaining wall, I'm trying to picture what that is going to look like for folks, who are using Sharon's Ave.
Well, as far as visibility from Sharon's Ave, there currently is a big row of forsythia along the property line, which it actually is on the line and also on the abutting property. We're not proposing to touch that at all. And the retaining wall, basically for the first 100 feet, is only going to be a foot to maybe a 1.5 feet high. Where it does go to the 3 to 4 foot high section is down in the back and along the boundary of Mr. DiMartino's property. And according to his proposed approved site plans, he also has an identical wall going along the back line of the property on Sharon's Ave.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It does say a medium to medium dark. I mean, can you define what color that is? Because I think Tom said
it's not
kind of a reddish.
It's not going to be a light gray like a standard concrete.
Yeah.
It'll be a darker finish.
Do you have any examples that you could show us of the color that you're talking about? Only so that if we say, oh, okay, well, we want the darkest color you've got there. I mean, just so on the plan we can just say, yeah, put that color. You know what I mean? Do you have any examples of the finish on these things?
Well, I mean, the concrete company that makes the blocks,
They must have a book.
They have
that has-
admixtures they can put in, so basically we can have the blocks made of whatever color.
Oh, okay. If you could just give us
We were
a
thinking
chip or something that of the color that you're choosing, and we'll just say, oh, okay, because we'll put it right into the decision what color the wall is going to be.
Wouldn't you want the same color as the wall that runs from Dedham Street to the rear of the abutting property? I don't think there was a color specified on that one.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Was it?
There might be.
I'm not sure.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
probably
ideally-
far enough off
I feel it
Sharon.
would be good for them to coordinate, but that one has not been constructed yet,
Funny to look
right,
at two
so.
different color walls. So to do it.
But that's pretty far off of Sharon, though, the adjacent property. So, I mean, you'd
Yeah, but the
really
wall,
be
I
noticing.
believe the wall that Mr. Quagliare is talking about is the proposed wall that runs along our property line. That
Well, I
is
know there's
supposed- is
landscaping
supposed to
along
be-
that wall, so
Well, there's landscaping uphill of it. There's anywhere from a 2 to 4 foot high retaining wall proposed on Mr. DiMartino's property, which is supposed to be a concrete block wall. And, he's just suggesting that if we're building one here, we should match the same colors with what's already been approved by the board.
all I'm saying is just provide us a chip of the color that you've chosen. Okay, do you know? Have you discussed it at all? Okay.
So, I mean, the difference is Mr. DiMartino's property, commercial, next door. You've got the residences, people coming down. That's the way I'm assuming they get, they leave their property every day, and they're going to be looking at that wall.
Well,
That's the only difference.
actually-
It could actually be a different color, because You know, it's
Yeah,
90
that
degrees.
is true, it
They're
is.
90 degrees from each other.
Actually, probably 80% of our proposed wall will be impossible to see from Sharon's
Yeah,
Ave
I get that.
because of
I
the
get that,
existing
yeah.
landscaping and ground cover.
Okay, okay,
In the commercial building behind it.
okay. Give us some samples, something, so there's no surprises, that's all. I think that's the most important.
Could we actually leave that decision up to the design review board?
Well, they could make a recommendation to us, and
We'll be coming back for requests on that.
That's fine, that's their function.
Okay. I guess in terms of the storm scepter, so it sounds like this is something that there's not a requirement in terms of a statute that requires it, but it's a question of whether it
No.
would be considered good practice to have something like
I
that.
mean, DEP regulations say you have to have them for sites with higher contaminant loading potentials, one of which is a service station. That's kind of a programmatic level statement. Here, there is some credibility in the argument that there are upgradient catch basins, which are likely to catch most runoff, and unless it was a catastrophic spill, would catch most of that. So there's not a legal requirement for it because DEP regulations don't directly apply to the site. Our planning board regs say that sites have to meet DEP whether it is otherwise applicable or not. So the only regulations we're dealing with are the planning board's own regulations.
Did the DPW, I'm
Do we
sorry.
require one of these at Oak Knoll? Is it the same thing?
Yes, I think we had a discussion there about it.
On the left side going in.
Yeah.
Did the DPW comment on that question? I don't recall seeing it. but-
Recall, yeah.
My recollection is no, they did not.
And we follow the same design criteria as the abutter also did. He has two catch basins at the entrance
Mhm.
that are not treated.
Does he have gasoline pumps?
yeah.
He does.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Well,
the difference, I mean, in
To,
terms
to
of.
clarify a point, I believe
Risk.
Tom's original comment concerned the DEP regulation for removal of 80% of total suspended solids. It did not address the oil and gas separation. Every catch basin is required to have an oil and gas hood on the outlet pipe coming out of it. So that automatically, has a containment for the hazardous waste. His issue is with the total suspended solids. And as I stated in my letter, our upper basins are tied into a system with an advanced technology to basically remove almost 90% of the total suspended solids for the drainage, which covers 70%, over 70% of the property.
That's correct.
Any comments on that?
I'd like to know what they're requiring on other sites. You know, it wouldn't be the first time that DEP likes to throw things out there that's over the top. So, you know, before you hand any development an extra $4,000 or $5,000 bill, and that's a pretty low number, I think, for storm scepters, unless it's a mini one.
Yeah, it would be actually, because it's
Okay,
a
but
very
it's
small
just,
area, but-
you know, these are the kind of intangibles that, you know, I think that coupled with bylaw issues and things like that, that kind of scare people up from developing here. So I'd like to know what happens in other towns, because again, with the, you know, flick of the pen, it makes things pretty expensive.
Could I comment on that? And if I have it wrong, Tom, let me know, but there are some towns that don't require treatment of drainage and storm scepters. And I thought that DEP regulation was to cover those towns that don't require the kind of treatment that Norfolk does. So that if a town, let's just say like Bellingham, who doesn't require storm scepters, base savers, were to propose a gas station, that it would be mandatory at the state level for them to have the storm scepter system in place. Whereas Norfolk already has that in their bylaw.
Yeah, the DEP authority is really separate. The issue is that on this particular site, DEP doesn't have jurisdiction because there are no wetlands within 100 feet of it. So if Norfolk had no regulations, then DEP would, there'd be no requirement at all for it. I think it's appropriate. I mean, the key issue is you provided the storm SEPTA 900 for most of the site. So, in terms of the spectrum of importance, you provided it for the 95 percentile. This is kind of a minor issue here of the last two catch basins on the site. I think my role is to point out that, it's kind of a policy. It's kind of questionable. It's, it does provide additional protection in terms of a catastrophic spill or something. What's the probability of that? It's pretty low. What's the cost? It's $4,000 or $5,000, I suppose. It'd be their smallest storm septic. It's a very small drainage area, but sort of formulating the policy question and deferring to the board as to what you want to do.
But I thought what I
If you want to ask me for a recommendation, what I'd do, but
Well, I thought what I heard is that the catch basins will have a hood for protection as far as, oil and grease.
As far as the oil and gas separators, there is a hood, oil and gas separator hood required on all catch basins.
So is this just a total solids discussion and decision?
no,
or-
it's more those last two catch. The whole site does it fine. The Storm SEPTA 900C will provide capacity to hold a catastrophic spill. It'll give you, 90% TSS removal. 95% of the site is fine. The only issue we're talking about is last two catch basins, which are right down. The reason they're not connected into the rest of the site is they're lower, because they come down to the curb line of the road. I raised it because our regulations say you're supposed to follow DEP, and DEP says for a site with higher contamination level, you're supposed to have separated structures. The fact that it's a small area at the entrance to this, is that quote unquote the site? I mean, it's a question. I'm raising it as a question and kind of leaving it up to the board as to
Does
where you
this
want to draw the line.
Delineate the location, the
Oh,
area that will be drained?
It's small.
It's just this.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
We're basically
point that out
talking,
again?
It's down gradient of those
It's
two.
just
catch
this
basins.
section right here.
we're basically talking about 400 square feet of
It's the
pavement.
driveway of the site.
I don't personally feel strongly about it, given it's that small an area.
I mean, the only reason they're there is the state requirement for the highway access permit is you shall not increase the runoff out into the state highway layout. And if those were not there, then there would be about a 5% increase in the runoff and maybe a 10% increase in the rate into the layout. But we're only talking about 400 square feet of pavement, roughly.
So, I mean, this is a public hearing, so if anyone
Well,
would like
I
to
just want to
speak.
make sure that this is graded so that if we don't require it, that we are absolutely sure that everything's being captured that's coming off of here in these. Now, does it appear as though the way it's designed
It's
that
as
everything
graded,
coming
yeah.
off
I
will be
mean,
captured here?
in a higher storm event, you may have some bypassing of the grates. But in terms of the grading of the site in the everyday storm, it'll go into the upper two grates.
And usually, if you're going to have problems, unless there's a catastrophic failure, that the first flush is what we have to really capture, and
Correct, yeah.
that's what you're going to that would be the if a storm first starts out. That's your first flush. Generally, it doesn't usually come down as a
That's correct,
downpour
yeah.
instantly, so that should be captured in these
Yes.
first two. Okay.
Do you know how to comment?
I don't know if it's possible or feasible, but I'm wondering if an alternative would be to include in the operations and management plan that in the event of a catastrophic spill of gasoline, that there be some kind of barrier placed across that opening so that those two catch, or on top of the, well, no, across, so it doesn't go into the street either. That would provide the additional protection without the cost. I don't know if there's such a barrier that can be put in there. I don't-
Yeah,
It's after you, it's after Clean Harbors shows up and
No,
sending you a
actually,
six-figure bill.
There are a
Spill
lot of,
dams
yeah,
with-
yeah, there are.
Well, it might be in order, something like that. Maybe it's not just for that area. Maybe it's good practice to have certain equipment like that available, you know, absorbent materials and such. I'm not too familiar with gas stations. I'm
I mean,
familiar with manufacturing plants.
Some type of follow-through in place, you know,
I mean, just
gas stations.
for instance, the positive limiting barrier that, has been included now around each of the pump islands is technically, supposed to hold around 30 gallons per island. So you're looking at 150 gallons of gas that will be contained before it even gets out on the pavement to get to the catch basins. So to have a catastrophic event, you'd be talking about something rupturing at the tanker as he's dumping into the gas.
I presume the tankers come equipped with some kind of spill containment
Yeah.
equipment. So.
Yeah, plus, my recollection is according to the fire code, there has to be emergency relief equipment on site to handle any major spill over and above what might be contained by the positive limiting barrier.
You're not showing the bollards, the restraints on the plan as of yet, correct, as far as the
the gas
islands for the
pumps?
gas pumps? I mean, is that,
Only show them on the ends of each. I don't show them on the plan view, but on the
okay,
plan for the building, I do show that bollards are to be included on the end of each island.
Which sheet is it on, do you know?
And would be
Last two?
sheet 12. On each end of the island before the post for the uprights for the canopy, there's to be bollards in place.
How about going over the lighting?
You know what, can I make a suggestion?
Oh.
What did it take to put that storm something? You'd have to do two catch basins, right? Two.
Well, it could either be, actually, it would either have to be two storm scepter 450s piped into the detention basin, or you would have to include a storm scepter 900. And I believe the 900 is around
No,
8,000.
for those two down below?
Yeah. You have the option. A 450 is a standard grade on top with the unit and one pipe coming out. So you could either replace the catch basins with the 450 unit, or you could tie both catch basins into a 900 and then tie it in
Well,
to the system.
I don't think we'd have a concern if you put in one 450i and went catch basin to catch basin and then into the, recharge structure. Like, that'd be fine. It's a small area.
Yeah, let's do that.
thank you.
I
Okay.
don't wanna have a guilt trip.
Yeah. It's the right thing to do.
Great, thank you.
As far as the lighting is
Sheet 8.
basically what we have is, I believe, 6 overhead street lights that they're on poles with a 3-foot extension The lights sit approximately 14 feet off the pavement. Basically, we have one covering the entrance, one on each end of the front of the parking. There's one at the entrance to the drive-through lane, one at the back corner to light the corner up, and then there'll be one at the Sharon's Ave exit and entrance. And then there'll be, the entire canopy will be underlit by a total of 6 lights mounted underneath the canopy, which will provide the lighting for anyone using the pumps.
You know, I'm looking here over along where you've got the parking on the side over there, the Sharon's Ave side.
Yep.
I mean, it looks to me as though you've got it virtually going down to zero by the time you get to that parking. That's not really realistic, is it? I mean, with the canopy lighting and everything else, these should be lit up better than what's indicated on this map, on this sheet, isn't it?
Well, we could add in one more.
Well, I'm just wondering if this is realistic. Don't you think that those spaces will be lit better than what it's indicated on this?
I think what you're seeing is a photometric plan based upon the
this, right?
fixtures that they're showing. It doesn't show any lights on the building facade or the light coming through the windows on the building facade, because it's going down below 0.25 foot candles there, and that's not going to be the actual illumination level at the front of the building. Similarly, I don't think it shows the down lighting in the canopy, because most service stations that I'm familiar with, right under the canopy, you have like 25 foot candles. It's very bright. So I think what that photometric plan is, and there's
it's just these, right?
Yeah, the Dover Land Survey included a disclaimer actually on that sheet saying it was done by somebody else.
Oh, okay.
But my guess is it doesn't show any lighting on the building facade, doesn't account for the light coming through the windows on the building facade.
No, it doesn't.
And doesn't show the down lighting in the canopy. So.
We don't want extra lighting if we don't have to have it. I just want to make sure that these parking spaces that are over here are lit.
Yeah.
Because it looks as though on this plan, it looks like they're dark over there. It's dark over there.
It'll be
But,
bright
I mean,
at
Steve,
night.
that leftmost pump light, I think is going to lend a lot more, like Tom said.
That's why I'm asking. That's because I didn't think this was realistic.
And I think just from a safety standpoint, where the electric's there, if for some reason it turned out to be dark, I think it would be an easy fix, even with that post light there, to put another head on it. So it wouldn't even have to change the posting.
Yeah.
I mean, where you have the truck unloading, I would think there'd be more light there than this is showing, and I think that's what you're saying, there's going to be, but, so that can be safely unloaded,
Yeah. I mean, the addition of an extra street light should not be an issue. And placing it right in front of the space that's going to be reserved for special orders only, the space that probably will never be used, will end up lighting this whole drive-through section. So that, yeah, we have no problem adding that in.
I have another point I'd like to get to, but before I do that, any comments, questions, concerns before we continue? I'd like to talk a little bit about the bypass, which I certainly appreciate that it's there, but I just want to make sure that there's adequate protection against the vehicle going off the wall back there. So I don't know if we have a plan that is best used to have that conversation.
Well, probably the grading plan would be the best plan.
Grading plan, which,
Yep. That would be sheet 4, I believe.
Slightly here, and a lack of plans here.
You want to move it over? Do you want to see some of this?
Okay.
I mean, basically, the way we have it now is, the 10-foot drive coming in, and then it widens out to 18 feet. We've provided along the back section of the building, on the outside, sloped concrete curbing instead of vertical, so that if anybody does have to use it, they won't end up rubbing their tires and possibly puncturing it. Again, the majority from like the middle of the building towards Sharon Ave, this wall's only going to be 1 to 2 feet high. It's only from the middle of the building back that it then becomes around 3.5 feet high. So, I mean, if you do require it or wish to have it added onto the plan, we could add in a wooden guardrail down along this section.
Let's add it in.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. We see it in the news every month.
Yeah.
Somebody's driving either through one of these stores in the front door, or I could see, and even if you fall off the edge 1 foot, that's enough to really have a car stuck.
Yep.
So,
Or flipped.
well, I hate to think that it'd be going fast enough to flip. But
Well, going down a 3-to-1 slope.
on the
and
three,
then hitting
there
a-
wasn't any question. I'm talking about the 1 foot area, even with that 1 foot.
I mean, if
Texting, trying to pick up the order with your foot on the gas, yeah, good happen.
and on the
Spill
phone,
hot
reading the
coffee on
paper.
yourself.
All right.
Right. I think that's
To solve the issue, we'll install a guardrail all the way down to halfway around the curve. Or, no.
And I would definitely think about protection in front of those spots in front of the stores themselves, because it's happening all the time.
Yeah. Well, that's an issue that me and Mr. Quagliari really haven't discussed. I mean, I know a lot of like the Cumberland Farms in the area have revamped all their stations to include a bollard like every 6 feet around the entire parking
that's
area
already-
adjacent to the building.
I mean, it happens.
Yeah, yeah. People do drive through building fronts
Yes, it is.
quite often.
Now, there is only one drive-through window, and this other box here is the menu board back here, right?
Yes.
Now, is that, I mean, I know that Dunkin' Donuts came through, and they had a complete analysis as to how far away that drive-through, the menu board should be away from the window to make it the most efficient.
The Institute of Transportation Engineering recommends at least 4 car lengths between the takeout window and the menu board. In our instance, we have space for 5 cars.
So 80 feet? 90?
It's actually almost 120.
So that even exceeds what
Yeah,
Dunkin's
yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's good too, because when they take that turn, they're gonna wanna be able to get close to the board as well, so you allow enough space, yeah. Okay.
So,
Any-
a couple other things. There was the decision on the night delivery, whether we wanted to weigh in as a board on that, whether we want to restrict it to night only or not. And the other question that I had was, I know that the design review board just recently gave you the comments, but they did weigh in on a suggestion to delete the parking along Dedham Street so that they could add more shrub landscaping. And I don't know if that was all of the parking along Dedham Street that you guys were referring to, or just a couple of the spots, but I just...
Well, our sense was that it was pretty barren looking, and we thought that the Dedham Street option, those cars, number one, were quite a ways away from that. They didn't all seem to be needed from the standpoint of parking required, and if they could, some be deleted, we were thinking of 2 to 4 could be deleted and substituted for landscaping. It would have a higher visual impact on the image of the program. That was just a recommendation concept.
That's why it's critical that you get your count for how many spaces you need.
Are we close on you know,
On the original plan, I did not include the area behind the counter, the work area for the employees, in the usable floor area. On this plan, I revised it that everything except the bathroom, the utility room, and the storage room is usable area. And we are at the required 28 parking spots. So these parking spots are required to meet your standards.
And you use the most conservative
Yeah.
calculations on the parking, more conservative than the original approval.
any idea, Bob, how we could beef it up?
I mean, additional landscape shrubbery and stuff can be added.
Well, we think the landscaping is as modest as it could be, to the point of almost non-existing. So we do think there needs to be some better landscape program than is shown. We didn't get into detail because we didn't know the deadline on this. We didn't know what the frontage road issue was. We didn't know whether this whole plan was going to change or not for any reason for beyond that. So we didn't get into that level of detail other than to raise the point that we would like to see more landscaping than we see. And we did discuss, but we didn't, that there's some concern over pedestrian and vehicle circulation with the front parking.
I guess in absence of a determinant from the building department, right?
Yeah, I mean, the building department's had a month to review these plans, and they've made no comment as far as
I
the
think you have to
determination on the
like,
parking.
Bringing up the point of the number of spaces.
Yeah, that's critical.
I think,
Well, if I could just add, this is a more conservative design for parking. And the building department had no negative comments on the original thing. So I, as the applicant, thought that the parking was a necessary, the additional parking was necessary, just by the proposed use.
I mean,
You see,
And
I don't
I'm just
think,
hoping there's a better way to overcome the challenge of the landscaping besides eliminating parking spots.
I mean,
well, these are the worst spaces,
Yeah,
these
those
ones out
back
here,
corner.
because,
I agree.
you know, to get into the building from this side is a lot safer than going in this way. So
Look at the
if you
drive-through
don't
traffic.
need these,
That's a good point,
you're
Steve.
probably better off without them and just keep the parking here and up here.
Well, you
But
almost,
the employees need a place to park.
So you can
And
compromise the snow area, the snow storage area too.
Yeah, I mean, just to Steve's point, for those of you that may not have a close look at the plan, I mean, those 4 spots in that corner, if it's, someone who is gonna be walking into the donut shop or inside a gas station, they're actually having to walk across the queue, what could be the queue for the drive-through. So that's, Steve's point, that those aren't really, those are the least ideal parking spaces.
but that's also the area designated for the snow storage.
Well, you can always have snow storage there. Even if you have a lawn, you could use the lawn for snow storage.
Well, what we tried to do was keep it on the pavement because, if you look at the utility plan, all this lawn area plus the area under the parking is the septic system. And we really do not want to have to stockpile snow on top of the septic system.
I'm just thinking if there are 6 or 8 employees working in there, those front spots could be taken up, and then the people that come and go would use the ones in front of the building to the side.
people that are there every day, obviously, you're not gonna have an issue with the drive-through lane. And, I mean, technically, even at this Dunkin' Donuts here, people walk by us in their queuing lane all the time, because it's the one and the same. I mean, if they were designated as employee parking because they know what to look for. Again, I don't know, to address Bob's challenges on the DRB with the landscaping issues, it kind of brings up something further that was brought up, I think, by Michelle last meeting, was Do we have any sightline distance issues with that driveway?
The entrance?
DiMartino driveway? Or the
No,
site
the
entrance?
driveway proposed.
No, they put the site distances on one of the drawing sheets. They're like
Okay, because
600.
we have a sidewalk plan, so it basically takes away.
Yeah, I mean, what they measured, I think, was stopping site distance on the road, but
Yeah.
there's nothing proposed that would infringe upon that, so I think it's an adequate
Okay,
measurement. 600 feet one way, I forget what is the other way.
Basically, on the plan, I have 600 feet each way. Technically, if you were to be pulling out of this, and you can't pull out because it's going to be an entrance only, you technically have almost 860 feet to the stoplights
Yeah,
at the intersection of 115.
So the real issue then is conflicts either with rear end collision or collision while turning. So if you got 600 feet in either direction, it's fine. There's no vehicles coming out there, that's right.
okay. I know, it's just brought up as a concern, so.
I did look at the DiMartino driveway, and that's a little bit complicated. If you're back about 15 feet, which is where ASHTO wants you to measure it, site distance is pretty restricted. It's a combination of the existing grade that they're cutting down somewhat, so it'll improve. But there's also a telephone pole there, so if you can see by the grade, then the other half is kind of blocked by this telephone pole. But I think it'll be better. The grading's being lowered a little bit there. It's probably not optimal, but that's where you're supposed to measure it. If you pull your car right up to the edge of the travel way, then you have an open view. So it's a little bit problematic, but I think it'll work, and I think it'll be better when they lower the grade there for the grading. So.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with all the comments about those front parking areas. I'd almost rather see a variance on the parking count and free those up, and even if you leave them some kind of a paved surface and you put planters on it or something that can
That's
enhance the
from the standard
landscaping,
location where you
yet be
sow
taken away in
snow.
winter time. If you don't want to be dumping snow on the grass. I think the difference between this and Dunkin' Donuts is you're coming in off of 1A, 45 miles an hour versus Main Street. And even at that, I think it's kind of dangerous crossing that queuing line at Dunkin' Donuts. You got people texting, people reading papers, and, you really have to make sure you make eye contact with someone before you cut across, otherwise a lot of times they're just going to hit you. So I do see that as a conflict. I think it also opens up, again, opportunities, what we were talking about last time, for a possibility, not a requirement, but a possibility of just grading that whole corner of the lot differently to potentially connect to the site next to it. So I just think that corner, that front corner, taking away the parking could open up all sorts of other enhancements and opportunities, from safety, from landscaping, from potential connectivity and usefulness to your end users of these sites. And for 4 spaces, it just seems like it would improve it.
There is another issue that
I think
just happened to be talking.
This is Hugo's
to the,
driveway, right?
Yeah.
So here's the
I
site
just
in
happened to be
question
talking
here.
to the building commissioner
This is the
yesterday,
property right
and
before.
he brought up the point of
Martinez, I think
the
is-
location of the driveway. And it has to
Thank
do
you.
with the location, how close it is to Sharon's Ave and the parcel next door, that the driveways would require a variance with current zoning.
I believe Tom answered that earlier,
Oh,
that
the
if you make the
interim drive.
determination that driveway is an interim drive, then it conforms to the regulations.
What does that
Well,
mean?
why would this be an interim
Yeah, what does that
drive?
mean, Tom, that this would be an interim?
That would be a temporary drive.
I would,
Yeah, it's defined in
Defer.
the zoning as such. It says if there is no frontage road, then you can construct an intermediate drive. The major driveways are defined as driveways that have over 500 vehicles an hour, which is a
So this is called an intermediate drive, not an interim.
Well,
No,
interim is what he's
sorry, yeah.
referring to.
Yes, interim drive, yes.
Not
That-
intermediate.
Yeah, I apologize.
Did you say that, or did I hear?
I don't know what I said, but yeah.
Okay.
But it meets the separation standard, which for the driveway is 150 feet. 'Cause it's only the major driveways over 500 cars an hour that require the greater separation.
500 cars an hour
On the roadway.
coming, coming and going.
That's like Social Plaza or something. That's, you know.
So if you paved that area for 4 spots, didn't stripe it, and to Michelle's point, you know, in the, 9 months out of the year or 7 months out of the year, whatever the case might be, you had some type of plants and pots or something out there, and then in the winter time, you removed them and used it for snow storage, that type of thing. And then in the future, if you needed that parking based on, what businesses are locating there at the facility, then it's something that could be revisited and it could always be striped and used for parking. I mean, in terms of your snow situation, I don't know, but I imagine that's manageable.
Well, the issue now, though, is that with the recalculation of parking, which I think is very logical, it's the total floor area of each space minus about 500 square feet, and that gives you the usable floor area. Usable floor area not being a defined term, but it's in the zoning, so you gotta kind of make a judgment as to what the usable floor area is. That's certainly a reasonable measurement, and if that's what you make your measurement to be, then there are no extra parking spaces. So if you take those away, you're creating a deficiency below what the bylaw says you're supposed to have.
Okay,
Except
well,
we don't know what the building commissioner
We
is gonna
don't know
require
what the
for
building
parking.
commissioner said, that's correct, that's.
But I will tell you as a business owner that it's needed. And, this is, I had the experience with Rocco Plaza and just people parking that don't even use the plaza. I mean, you need extra spots because you can't sit there and patrol who parks in your parking lot all day.
People from Four Kicks going over and parking in that parking lot?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Really? Well, I knew Four Kicks was always
You need
jammed.
a full-time guard there.
Well, they don't park around the back.
Oh, they
Too
fill
far a
up.
walk.
I know, Steve. Your kids are a little older, believe me.
And
It
so,
packs.
And I'm not saying that is, but maybe there are people from Sharon Ave out there. Maybe somebody wants to go walk up to the dock. You just can't control who parks in your lot. And, I'm just finding it an issue right now, and the businesses, are complaining, and, so, I looked at this and I spoke with Evan and said, we gotta make sure that we can design this thing so, there aren't complaints. So I understand the landscaping, and I just wish there was another way to resolve it, to everybody's liking, but.
How about if we
impact of
wordsmith it?
Four parking spots, I mean, just say there's 8 employees there, I mean, it's gone, there's 8 spots that are gone.
No.
Right there.
Well, 4. We're just talking about.
No, but you
No,
said
I'm
8
talking
off
about
your
if there are
count.
8
If you had
employees.
28, down to 20.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, if you have an 8
There are
employees.
four
Employees, that
spots
means
that
all
are
these
just-
front spots.
Yeah.
Just
filled.
wipe them off for custody.
Well, how about if it was written to the extent that if it was required by zoning bylaw, or if it was required to support the businesses, that they'd be striped and used for parking? You can manage that, whether that's 2 years from now or,
Yeah.
never. I'm not sure what the case might be. But at least, I mean, it's, you've demonstrated that you're interested in doing the right thing. You did that with the catch basin. Well, let's do the right thing. And if you need the parking spaces, well, you'll have them. You'll have them. And just stripe them and use them at the.
So asphalt it, but don't stripe them.
Well, if you want to use it as solid snow storage, I mean, I was saying just to have lawn there, but you don't want to store the snow over a lawn. You're just afraid it's going to permeate through the soil, right?
Well, we're afraid if we stack the snow up on the lawn, then it'll create a burden on the septic system, which is only about 2 feet below the pavement here and only a foot below the surface of the lawn.
Oh,
As-
it's
as
that
you get-
close to the surface over there in that corner?
When you get out near the Dedham Street, there's only 1 foot of cover, which is the required minimum
Yeah.
by Title V. But underneath the parking areas, I've got 2 feet of cover.
So just to be clear, it'd be just like parking spaces, except there's no stripes. You know, you can put some plants there until such time that you require, from a practical standpoint, you need the parking, stripe them and use them. Or if our calculations require it, then obviously you'll need to stripe them and use them. You know, I mean, I think,
So just take
you know, it's, we
the
could,
plants out for the winter time?
yeah, so you have a place to put your snow and, you know, just try to manage it that way. I mean, this is how we will work together so that this is a successful project. You may not need to use those spots for a few years. I mean, I hope that's not the case. I hope you're that successful there.
Can we talk about the plants?
Well, I don't think we want to get too
You know,
specific, you know,
it's a
just,
legitimate
okay,
conversation.
yeah, yeah,
All
yeah.
right, because, I mean, if you're gonna tell me to put, 10 plants there.
No.
All he's doing
No,
is
no, no.
recommending
I
it.
can save a lot of money by
Yeah.
getting rid of those parking spots.
Yeah.
A
Well,
lot of money,
That's
all right?
what
But
we're
I'm just trying to use
recommending.
common sense for business here.
You said you didn't want to get rid of the spots, Mr. Quaglieri, so we're trying to come up with a middle ground here, because you may not need those spots for some period of time. So in the meantime, you know, a few, you know, decent size potted, you know, maybe small trees or something. I'm not talking about anything large, but something to address the points that have been raised by the design review board. I mean, it's been brought to our attention, and we're just trying to find, some compromise, that's all.
I think that the only reason to put some potted plants out there is just to discourage anyone from parking there. If they're not parking spaces, just
Well, I thought
make
we're
sure
trying-
that they're
I
not
thought we're trying
parking.
to beautify the corner.
Well,
We're trying to
well, that could be
accomplish-
done by planting that
trying to
corner
accomplish
too.
several goals.
Yeah.
Part of it's pedestrian safety, part of it is aesthetics and image, and, part of it is just workability for the site. I think I raised last meeting that there's an awful lot going on in this site, and if we start sacrificing safety or, just even aesthetics to try and cram it all in, that's not the middle ground where we want to reach. So if we're feeling that one corner has particular conflicts that are raising several issues, and we're just trying to reach that compromise.
Whatever you say. I'm good with it.
Mr. Chairman, just a
Now grab a microphone, please.
I'm Mike Kaliza, Creek Drive. Regarding the pots, for me, that sounds like a silly idea. I mean, it's cumbersome. Pots break. They have to be maintained and watered. The plants in there are going to die. I just think it's a silly idea to require pots out there. I just plant some trees, plant something that's going to live there on a permanent basis. But
Well, if they're not
Putting-
paved, that's all well and good.
putting
but-
pots out there just seems like a very silly, wasteful
Okay, you've said it
idea.
once, so what are you proposing?
I don't know. If I'm a businessman, I want parking out there.
Okay, so the design review board has made recommendations that, we should be sensitive to the landscaping, so I guess you're suggesting that design review board, that we should take that with a grain of salt, I guess, and.
Well, first of
pay,
all, you have to recognize, the documents we had said they needed 22 spaces,
Mhm.
and they wanted 28. We were saying if they only needed 22, some added landscaping could occur, and if it could occur, the front location was recommended. As I sit here tonight and hear this, one thing I would say that could be considered is there could be a landscape island within each of those 4 parked spaces. One landscape island would improve the landscaping and provide the visual impact and not change the parking count.
There's a good idea right there.
Well,
So landscape island, just explain it a little more clearly in terms of.
Basically, if you take a 2 to 2.5 foot wide landscape strip and put it between 2 cars, so you have 2 cars
Right.
in that, you're gonna lose 2 feet there, which looks like it can be accommodated with the layout that's there, and I'm just reacting,
right.
off the cuff right now. We were just trying to say, if you didn't need the cars, we thought more landscaping would improve the impact and appearance from the street of the program. And we're still saying that, but there's probably another way we can accomplish that and keep the parking.
Mr. Quaglieri?
Good idea.
Yeah,
Good
okay.
idea. You push the two spots out.
We push
This way
these
and
two
put a-
over.
Yeah,
Right, you make the geometry work, but the point is,
no, that's fine.
and it softens the impact of the whole,
Yeah,
Right.
and some excellent landscaping.
Okay.
we've done this
Ms.
before.
Whitney?
Yeah, Elizabeth Whitney, 26 Valley Street, Pondville. Listening to I came here primarily to see what was going to happen relative to landscaping. I could not attend the DRB meeting the other night. I like that idea, Bob. I think it's very important to not have Dedham Street look like much of Route 9. It is still a country setting out there. I think we need in Pondville to preserve that, and I think that there are ways to accomplish the requirements for parking and the visual program that Bob is referring to. What is the percentage of lawn to the other parts of the project, to pavement?
As far as the pavement, well, as far as impervious lot coverage is 72 something, I believe, percent impervious coverage, which leaves like 28% of landscaping and lawn.
I thought pavement was referred to as being about 76%. Did I get that wrong from the last
On
time?
the original plan,
Oh,
on this
okay,
plan,
okay.
total impervious lot coverage is a hair over 72%.
Okay. And relative to signage, you've got to get that on there too. You've requested to keep and upgrade the sign that's already there, I think, correct? And you've requested two. I was looking at plans tonight.
We are allowed two signs, one on Dedham, one on Sharon's
15
Ave.
feet high.
And as far as the existing sign that's there, that already has a special permit.
Okay. And you want two more signs 15
We are
feet
allowed
high.
two signs.
You are allowed that.
They
Where would
can
they
be
be?
10 feet high. We can get them to go as high as 15 feet with a special permit.
So you-
And the location of the signs are shown on the plan. There's
Could
one
you
right by
tell
the
me where they are?
entrance, and there's one in the middle of the property on this side.
Okay.
And the other sign, is that the one that is for?
For the dog
The
kennel.
dog, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
I forgot about
That's
that.
already covered under a special
Forgot about
permit.
I forgot about the dog kennel. I noticed on your elevations, you showed individual signs on the units. It's come up as an issue before about signage, on these faster roads. Did you ever give any thought to potentially putting them on, say, like the roof line with maybe a hoop type light, just so it sticks out more? They seem to use those in a lot of towns that. It just gives a nicer feel to it rather than kind of the
Instead of
placard type of.
You mean instead of on the facade, put them up on the roof?
Well, at least light them. Over at the Rocco Plaza, it's pitch black. Those signs are dark. They're not lit at all.
Lighted on the plan.
What's that?
The signs are indicated as lighted.
On this plan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
It's just a suggestion. I've just heard, complaints that the signage isn't good enough for businesses, and I'm just trying to throw out a different idea of how they can stick out. That's
Well,
all.
I can tell you now that from the street, the way it's looking now, you couldn't see the signs with the canopy for the gasoline station.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you're gonna have the same recurring problem as you are in other retail areas, that we can't see signs. Just something to consider.
A problem with the suggestion is the bylaw does not allow signs above the wall area of a building.
The problem with our sign bylaw, Jimmy?
No, in other words, not along the roof line. Is that what it's saying?
That's the way it sounds to
That's
me.
compensated by the fact that they've got a sign at the entry that tells you what's there, and as soon as you get inside, you can see it.
Right. And I suppose even if we did put it on the roof with the canopy there, it's gonna be kind of,
Well, Can you have them a little lower so that you can see them under the canopy? Is that
You'd be
is
blocking
that,
the
you think
glass.
that, what's that?
Like you probably be, it's not a tall building, right?
Physically, the canopy is going to block the most signage from the street, so that the way the operation, I'm assuming, will work is the street identifies that this is what's here, and you drive in and find it.
Oh.
I just remember the original operator of the Chinese restaurant at Rocco Plaza, came to the town complaining that they wanted a better signage. I could see, especially if you got the green on Pine Street, you're certainly not reading their signs, that's all.
So the building at Pine Street was wired, so we had those lights, but they're set under the overhang,
Okay.
and the tenants didn't like it. And so now they're on the face of the overhang because it gets them closer to the street, but you really can't.
I mean, we got to revisit
Yeah.
that, because to be honest with you, in many even when we redo retail storefronts down in like Chatham, they have the signs on the roof line. It looks nice with the lighting, and you can pick it out
I mean, right on the asphalt
above
roof?
above the facade on the sloped roof.
If you were allowed to have a bigger sign than Norfolk allows, then that would be better. I mean, those signs that you allow on the building, they're pretty small.
Well, especially down that district where we're 70 feet back from the road, and it's faster roadways. So it's just.
Okay, I guess what may be the last point here is the night delivery only, the question about whether there needs to be, some type of restriction. I'm not sure how feasible that is, to do that.
Well, I think that's what they do here in the center of town. Is that's a restriction on the center of
I
town.
don't
is
think
that
so.
they
I've
take-
seen deliveries during the day there.
Really?
I'd have to see that order of conditions. I don't believe that's true.
I thought that was in there. Do you remember, Gino?
I don't remember.
I
That was
think-
like
Well,
12
guess
years
what?
ago.
It's being ignored.
I think it gets difficult because you can get into demurrage and cost, with a truck sitting somewhere down Route 1 waiting until, the business, is closed. So I would rather focus on how could it be done safely, and I'm not sure exactly, and maybe it's a question of manpower in terms of having adequate personnel, in terms of a management plan, like Gino said, can it be addressed through a management plan so that, a truck can safely enter
What happens
the
if something
facility.
gets blocked in?
Usually what I see done is when they know they're getting a fuel delivery, they'll cone off those
Yeah,
spaces.
yeah.
Oh.
All right, and I have that type of truck license, and I've driven a lot of trucks, I own those trucks. And you'd have no problem pulling in there. You'd jack the truck in those parking spots, come right along that loading zone, and you may not even have to back up.
Mhm.
A good driver wouldn't even have to back up.
Yep.
I'd like to see us address it similar to what we did at Dunkin' Donuts, to allow it during the day, but if it gets to be problematic with backups, people going out on the road, then as a condition, they need to come back and revisit it.
I
But
see
think
that.
to let them try it
Mhm.
as the start would be fine,
Fair enough.
but have it as a condition.
That's fair.
So we'll include some language about a management plan, and if it's not adequate, then we'll have to review it.
Sounds good?
Because demurrage can be very expensive,
Yeah. I had a huge claim.
Yeah.
One other thing I noticed on your plan, we didn't really talk about it, but just like Redbox, your ATM may turn into be a internally illuminated sign, thus illegal. We couldn't get a Redbox at Walgreens because of it, because the building inspector decided it was a sign, and we can't internally illuminate. Another one of those wonderful sign
Store.
Can it be
contingencies.
inside?
Yeah, put it inside the store.
I don't think they necessarily wanted it in there.
Oh.
But the point is, Bob read it that way, and so,
So the red box, then,
that they
Red
had,
movies?
like, Cumberland Farms in Walpole has an outdoor red box, as opposed to in Roach Brothers.
yeah.
And that unit outside of Cumberland Farms, at the end of Norfolk Street, would be considered illegal sign in Norfolk. So just be aware that an ATM may in fact.
There were lit up signs up and down 1A. How did those signs get lit?
Not internally lit.
No, yeah,
In Norfolk?
sure there is. There's a building right before Foxborough Electric that has a lit up sign with bulbs in it.
Our goal is to create commercial growth. I'm not looking for trouble right now. Leave that up to the building commissioner.
That's an allowed use.
I don't know.
Well, it's not a planning board issue.
Anything that
It's not a
occurred
planning
before
board.
1990
Yeah.
was before the zoning
Yeah.
prohibited, and Foxborough Electric was there.
That's been there a
well
long time.
before that.
Right, that
And
building's
the
been
building
there.
in front of that.
So, let's stick on this one now, right
Okay.
now. I just
Okay.
bring it up if you're planning for an ATM or soliciting a bank to come in to put an ATM there, just, it may be an issue. It was for Redbox.
Okay. Where this is a public hearing, I guess I'll ask one more time. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Tom, Gino, any further comments?
I think we're pretty well set. I think the other thing I have to do is just check those drainage calcs, but I think the plan's fine.
Mr. Quaglieri, any further comments?
If you would like to close the meeting, I would.
Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing on 242 Dedham Street. Do we have a name on it? Or is it just
That's it.
Leo's Landing?
Landing.
Okay.
Uh,
Oh,
Mr.
sorry.
If the
Nicodemus.
hearing is closed, can changes be made to the document package?
Subject to the conditions,
We'll condition.
From the design review board, is that?
right.
First of all, we submitted suggestions, there hasn't been a chance to have interaction or see any of those changes because they just got submitted,
Right.
and I suspect that there will be more comments to deal with, and I didn't know how to do that if the hearing's closed.
So those aren't reflected
Well,
in terms of the,
no.
Comments just came in for this meeting.
Right.
Okay.
So he talked-
Well, why
he
don't we
talked about the
hold it
size of
open
the-
until we get the new design and design review?
okay, I
board
thought
resolve
that
them
the
again.
building plans reflected your, okay.
So he talked about the
Um,
size of the dormers.
So, I mean, I can gladly withdraw my motion, just, isn't that the purview of the applicant technically, though?
But, some of these I would imagine address as conditions such as the landscaping plan,
Right.
the retreat, the parking and all that strip, I think would be a condition that we have to come back with a landscape plan before we're gonna sign off on.
I guess my point is this, is that technically, the hearing is the purview of the applicant. I think it would be wise, because even simply talking out some of these issues resolved, even like the corner landscaping and things like that. So, Evan, the engineer, you're the applicant, it's kind of your call.
Well, I guess the question,
Okay, sorry, Gino, go ahead.
Yeah.
Before he makes a decision on that, I would suggest that to keep it open, but I would still go ahead and have a draft ready for the next meeting, just so any additional changes can still be discussed. But we won't lose any time because the draft, would be ready, and then there's at least a chance that that draft could be amended as part of the discussion and, be finalized at the same time, the same night. So
Yeah.
there's no time lost.
maybe that's the right thing to do, but just a
Absolutely.
question. Did you have an opportunity to look at the comments from the design review board? Are there any concerns aside from the landscaping, which I think we came up with a solution, but are there concerns with the other recommendation?
Basically, the recommendations was, change the width on the dormers of the building, get rid of the cupola on the top, do some sort of trim work on the canopy, and then there was the issue of removing the parking spaces along the front, which we've redetermined. They were looking at the plans and said we only needed 22 spots. The new calculations say we have 28 and we need 28. So.
I think it would be good to get those revised elevations on both the canopy and the building elevation, just to make sure that they're gonna meet the
Okay.
proportions and goals that were intended.
Okay. I think we could do it either way, because it sounds like we have it narrowed down to,
All the
very
other
few issues at
putting
this
in
point.
the guardrail, adding the
Yeah,
storm
okay.
scepter, those are minor details that can be added to the plan.
Okay.
I'd like to withdraw my request to close.
Okay.
It's your call.
You're better off that way, rather than having it just closed and have us say, oh, we're going to have to put that in the decision, oh, we're going to have to put that in the decision. Then you'll probably end up with something that you don't want.
I just don't want another bite of the apple that we haven't talked at today. So can we agree about that?
I think we vetted it pretty well here, so.
Yeah.
So, April 11th is our next meeting, so that's, it's a little ways off. It's, is
I
it
don't
3
want
weeks,
another
4
opportunity
weeks?
to discuss
4
it
weeks
either, to
off.
be honest with you.
Um,
Put this
is
on
that
the site.
acceptable? I mean,
Fastest
4
you can
weeks?
get me on.
From your standpoint, okay. Because otherwise, we can try to sneak another meeting in, but if that's reasonable from your standpoint, we'll work with that date, April
Well,
11th.
I can't get to the zoning board until I finalize this, so, you know, there's a long ways to go after you guys. You know, there's the waiting period, there's the drafting, you know, if there's anything after the, that plan has to be perfect before I can even apply to zoning, so, I mean, I don't mean to be a doom and gloom, but, you know, by the time you could actually apply for a building permit, and I'm not saying I'm ready to, you know, it may be the end of the summer,
Yeah,
you
understood.
know, and it's,
Well, it's a
It's a
big
long ways
project,
to go.
too. I mean, it's a good-sized project. Ms. Whitney, sorry.
Elizabeth Whitney, just probably this is a good time to say that there is the issue of a demolition delay, that it's the law in Norfolk that any building that is on the list of historical buildings. Has the building inspector brought that to your attention? The historical commission would vote on it. Whether to have the delay, it
Well,
could
direct
be.
your comments to the chair, I think.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please. Thank you. Yep. So your question is whether or not the
I
applicant
didn't know if the
is
applicant was aware
it's-
of that.
So this is a historical
Yeah.
building,
Mhm.
evidently, within the Pondville? Is it recognized?
Oh,
as
it is
part of-
on the list of historical buildings. It was built in the late
What's the
1800s.
delay, Tom? Is it 70, or Gino, 75 or 50 years? What is it?
Oh, the cutoff?
Well, it depends on how we passed it in this town. Every town's.
It's different in every town.
I don't know.
But it sounds like if it's on the list, then it's subject to that provision. And it's on.
Oh,
and if
it
it's on the
is.
list.
It's in the Massachusetts list of historical properties in Norfolk. So the Historical Commission, first of all, Bob Bullock should bring it to, excuse me?
it has a poured concrete foundation.
It is a historical structure, so it will come. It is the law in Norfolk for
Well,
that building
I mean,
to come
you know,
before.
Jeff, that's not our code. That's the
No,
building
yeah, that is the
inspector.
building
So
But I am interested in knowing, so what is the procedure? Because I'm not familiar with it for something like
The
that.
applicant would perhaps, well, there's paperwork to be filled out. It would be submitted to the chairperson of the Historical Commission, and I know this because I'm on the Historical Commission. We review the applicant. We're more than happy to have the applicant visit the committee meeting. We have the legal discretion to have a delay up to 6 months. We sometimes waive it, we sometimes reduce it, and the building inspector does inform every applicant if a building is going to be demolished that this requirement exists.
And the purpose of the 6-month
Well, the
delay, if in
purpose
fact-
would be for the Historical Commission to hopefully visit the site and investigate if there are any items or pieces of the structure that are of historical value.
Okay, and this may be kind of an unusual situation, given that, you know, we're looking at a commercial opportunity and weighing that against the historical property, but is that process, does it typically involve input from other boards, whether it be a planning board or zoning bylaw study committee or other?
No.
You know, but it's an open, meeting, right? It's an open
It doesn't
forum.
distinguish between commercial or residential or historic buildings.
So it's not common for other boards to participate, for
No,
example, but
no,
it
no.
obviously, it could happen. I mean, it's an open forum.
But it is
right?
a matter of procedure before a building is demolished. A demolition delay permit must be completed, and Alan can discuss it with Bob Bullock. He knows all about it.
Okay, thank you.
Could I have a question on that? So, and I don't know the answer to this.
I'll take the
obviously.
mic. The TV at home can't hear it. Mike?
So Al, just to be clear, so we're not necessarily involved in that process, but we can certainly participate in terms of open meeting, and I'm sure we can add input regarding the project. So, I mean, that's probably the extent of our involvement, but go ahead.
So when would a building like this be put on the register? Typically.
Well, I know that, I remember when the law was passed at town meeting, and it had to do with the Wayland Farms. I don't know if you remember when they passed the law. That was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm sure the Historical Commission came up with a list back then as to what they considered historical buildings in the town. I know I've seen a list of the historical buildings, but I didn't pay too much attention to it.
This was done in 2006. We hired, the town of Norfolk hired Catherine Kelly Broomer from the Mass Historical Commission to do just this kind of a canvassing of the entire town, and a list was comprised.
And
It's on the Historical Commission's website
Yeah.
as to what every building that's on there.
And is it because of the age of the building, or it had some?
the age.
Okay.
Because 75% of that building was a commercial addition approved by the town of Norfolk in 1978.
Yeah, but the date that the building was built originally.
Okay.
Well, that's
So-
why I didn't have Cole burn it down, because he wanted to burn it about.
Well, we had him here earlier tonight.
Shouldn't have said that.
It's a joke.
We may have to take a recess.
He does like to burn those things. He's always looking for things to burn.
Would have been a good practice run.
Okay, well, I guess with that, I think we'll we'll continue the public hearing. Do I have a motion to continue the public hearing for, we did,
It's gonna be 4 weeks.
April 11th,
Okay.
April
Do you want
11th?
to put, I mean, are we going to have, I know we need a meeting on the 11th to try to get this zoning bylaw stuff in, but do we want to squeeze something in before then? Because
That's
right
fine with
after
me.
that, that's town meeting.
That's fine with me, I mean,
We'll be ready.
Jeff, if you wanted to avoid the 28th, they might just do back-to-back weeks. 4th, oh, you can.
I could do another night, it doesn't have to be Thursday, I mean,
Yeah, but
let's see, a Tuesday night okay for you?
Tuesday's good.
Tuesday
Yeah,
the
just one.
26th? I mean,
But I-
you
but-
can
but-
make it,
Not available.
But I can have the decision ready.
yeah. we
That'd
can-
be great, Gene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's try to move this thing.
How about
along.
that? The 26th, Al, is that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, that works. Okay. So do I have a motion to continue the public hearing to Tuesday, March 26th? Time bets, kick it off at like 7:40 or something?
I'll make a motion to continue Leo's Landing, 242 Dedham Street, to March 26th at 7:40
Second.
p.m.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm trying to look up state historical, registry of historical places.
I think it's only like a 90-day delay or something.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Some towns are brutal. But they're the towns that actually have historical.
Oh, my God.
It's not online, but they want a 90-day for $30, so. I'm not gonna be able to get
He
that.
should file for his demolition. He should file for his
Well,
permit.
it's not even Al. Cole's always trolling for training exercises.
He is. Yeah, I don't know what Norfolk's is. A typical demolition day is 30 or 60 days. That's
But a
what
lot of
most
them,
towns have.
much
She's
like
on
that
the commission,
property,
she said
they
6
look at it and
months.
said, "There's nothing
Overs is a
historical
year.
here."
Really? 6 months? I
Medway's
don't
is
think
6
it's
months too.
Yeah.
I think they have like.
Okay, we're going to continue here this evening. It is 10 of 10. The next item of business was to be a discussion with Ron Nation of 3 lots on an unimproved section of Priscilla Ave. However, at the request of the applicant, that appointment was canceled. The next item of business.
They don't want to come in, or is it?
No, he's got some work to do. He'll let us know.
Oh, okay.
Was to be, and will be, I believe, a review of Oak Knoll Estates subdivision plan for endorsement. So do we have those plans?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Awesome.
Move that to the next meeting.
So that will be continued to our next meeting, which brings us to the next item of business, which is the Toils End Farm Fox Run subdivision. Discussion regarding trail locations and a request for release of trail construction bond. Gentlemen.
Oh, I think it might be the one that I actually got from Jack Hathaway. Okay, good, yeah.
Gentlemen, we're, given gentleman of Mark Lowe, Colby Home Corporation. We presented to the Board of Selectmen on the 26th, as per the decision, decided the location of the trails in the Norfolk portion of Fox Run. At that time, they decided that they didn't want any trails. They voted to not have any trail construction on site. We're here tonight to see if you would agree with that decision.
My understanding is that the letter that we got from you guys is slightly different than somebody else's recollection of the Board of Selectmen's meeting. Have we heard from the Board of Selectmen on this?
Did I think we got a letter from
Yeah,
You were
I
there,
haven't
weren't you, Joe?
seen, yeah, I was, but I haven't seen
I
the
have a
letter.
letter right here.
You have
Yeah.
a letter from the Board of Selectmen?
This actually comes to Jack Hathaway.
Yep.
We can share this, I guess.
Well, the only problem that I have of not having marked trails is people just wandering. I mean, granted that there are existing trails, but I'd like to see if there can be some sort of a marking that shows the edge of the property, where the property line ends, because I don't want people just wandering, assuming that they're in open space and wandering in people's backyards. You know what I'm saying? If we don't have defined trails, then we should at least define what the edge of the property line is.
I mean, my opinion is that we would be creating a problem potentially. I mean, there is no problem presently that I'm aware of with the existing state. The planning board did defer and request that the Board of Selectmen take action in terms of the location of trails, which they've done. So, I mean, at this point in time, I mean, I think our business is complete in terms of the planning board.
Well, it's just that they're sort of recommending that people use the existing trails, and those existing trails do wander up to people's backyards.
Well, the existing trails, there will be trailheads, correct, for the existing trails. This deals with what would have been a new trail, okay, which
Well, most
would've-
of these are constructed in the same locations of existing trails. Most of these are in the exact same locations as existing trails. But if you don't actually have a marking that shows where the trail is, because, you know, things get overgrown or whatever, I'm just afraid that people are going to start wandering into what is
Steve,
private property.
we have spent hundreds of hours, it feels like, on trails on this site. But to that end, especially with the butter feedback and everything else, we made a decision as a planning board before you here, Michelle, and said, the selectmen are going to get together, they're going to have the people in, they're going to decide the route. I really don't want to relive this again.
Can
Well,
you
I'm just
describe
concerned
to me,
about people
the houses are
wandering.
here, and it looks like the trail is only here? Is that right? Trail
Goes
goes,
out in both directions.
does it happen around the houses at all?
There are existing trails on your own town-owned property.
Yeah.
In here?
Right.
That are just not shown on this?
Correct. They're trails actually that the equestrian farm is probably using and people have used for
Okay.
many years.
So here's Maple, here's Warren.
Yeah.
So there's trails in here because this is still an active full farm horse. There's a ring there and such and then they board horses there, correct?
Is
So
this fencing, right?
There's fencing, yeah.
So there's fencing here for this property, fencing here for these properties. So the concern would really be if you're in here, and Steve, you're thinking they might
No.
wander into these?
The problem is down in this area. This is the area where especially where it gets really narrow here. That's where I think that people will
And your
start
property's
wandering
over here?
onto
Is that
private
what it is?
property. Right.
It's home.
So you have basically a home
I see.
here. You have a steep ravine there, actually, and then on the other side you have wetlands. There's no path in terms of any type of distinguishable trail presently. The trees are far enough apart where one can walk through there without issue.
Just like you're walking in the woods.
And
Well,
if
there
it
is-
were
there
to
is
be,
a definable trail.
there's
down
not a definable trail. I've walked that. There's not a definable trail.
Michelle, you have no idea unless you've been bored and watching planning board meetings from 2 years ago.
So the concern is that would be a
You
new
kinda walk
trail.
right along here.
It would have to be cut to like a 6-foot width, okay? So you'd have tree clearing, you'd have excavation in terms of installing a base for a trail. And the planning board, the Board of Selectmen has cited concerns with that, not the least of which is that it could encourage horse walking, riding, what have you, and then the trail would need to be maintained, which most likely it wouldn't be. So that's just one issue.
So I think what Steve asking is a compromise, maybe you don't develop or change this trail in any way, but perhaps have postings or markings along this edge just to say
Yeah,
private
the-
property, no trespassing?
That's what I'm saying, is just to make sure you define
End of
those
town
edges so that people don't
property, or-
wander onto private property when they're in there.
Most
Does
of
that
that is
seem-
what we call Lot 72. That actually is owned by the stables right now. Not that property right there, Michelle, but yes, correct. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it's not private, it's town property.
There's-
Not
There's
those
This-
ones that,
This
there's
is,
town owned
this is
here and
private.
this will be
the other
private
side,
over
the
here.
other side's all private.
This
That
is
over
private,
there.
this is private.
That's all private.
But nobody's gonna walk, that's the other side of the ravine.
No, that's the perfect location for, that was one of the design trails. It was right out there into that,
So you should
onto
come out
Maple
here.
Street.
Yeah, but
Come
not
over.
there, here. There was trails.
No. The trail was designed to go right through here, right there. That's the trail, right there.
I think what's happening is that the existing trail that's actually on your town-owned property goes onto this gentleman's property.
Correct.
Right alongside it ends out. You know,
What appears to be the access point is on his property.
That's right.
Yeah.
And there's some
He's
trees
masked
that have been
masked
planted.
that with landscaping.
Yeah, that was some of the mitigation. There's some trees have been planted there.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the other side, I mean, you've got a home in terms of the issue that the Board of Selectmen had brought up in terms of privacy and such. Cutting a trail would, potentially detract from the privacy of those folks. I mean, because especially on that ravine, I mean, you can literally look inside the home.
Right.
Oh, if you're way up on it, but if you stay down below.
But
you
then
wouldn't.
down below, you have the wetlands. So it's, I mean, my opinion is we should just leave it alone. I don't know that anything needs to be done. I don't know that there needs to be any signs, any clearing.
And this is all kosher over here now?
And it's been reforested, so it's less accessible than ever.
I see. We tried to discourage.
There
the
is a
fence.
trail over there, though, right?
There's a trail, but they tried to
Massive
discourage
landscape.
it.
There's kind of, and I think it was more,
Oh,
based on what the abutters said that came in here that were very concerned about the trails, I think it's been more an animal traverse than anything. Like deer or
Deer,
whatever,
right, sure.
right. But it's not truly, I don't know. Even the
Individuals
trails
could
we
post
created
their
are
own
overgrown.
property line if they wanted
They
to,
could
you know,
post
an
their own
individual could do
Yeah.
that if they found it was a problem. I don't think it's a huge burden to ask it to be a good neighbor and say, hey, do you mind posting a few signs yourself? I mean, I just think that,
This is
If
500
it
feet
were
from a home, right?
Yes.
So he can shoot. So that's a good way to keep him on.
Okay, so, I mean, this does not require a minor modification.
and what
The
is he
actions,
asking for tonight?
the actions of the Board of Selectmen are entirely consistent with what we've asked.
Our orders of
And so
condition.
there is no requirement for the applicant to come back to the planning board. I think the applicant just wants to ensure before they put a pin in their, plan here as far as trails that, and appreciate you coming to us.
Yes.
But
Thank you.
as chairman of the planning board, our business with the trails is done. So the Board of Selectmen have made a determination and please proceed accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I
Go take
concur
a look.
as a member of the planning board.
So whatever plans need to be marked up and such, please do that so the file is complete, but this board needs to take no further action.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so now, you have an interest in reviewing the bond.
Yes.
So, what do we have here for
It's a
cost?
$10,000 trail construction bond, correct, Walter?
Four
So-
trails.
So do we
Trail
have
construction
cost,
bond.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear the first.
do we
one.
have cost to complete information? Do we have that?
Do we have anything written down?
What are we completing?
Actually, the bond reduction, and I was in here tonight, maybe Bob McGee already spoke on it about,
Well, he sent something, but it wasn't on the agenda.
it wasn't on the
He was,
agenda?
yeah, he didn't come tonight.
This is about a surety bond in the amount of $98,000.
Oh, this has to do with Maple Street?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, we're
okay.
gonna put that on for the next meeting.
Okay, all right, all right. Well, for the bond reduction for the trails themselves?
So normally when we do,
$10,000 bond out there.
There's no
right?
trail construction, so I don't understand the question.
well, I don't know in terms of trailheads and what's required, and in terms of the trails, if they meet the requirements. I mean, have they been surveyed? I mean, it's been a lot of snow out there and such. I mean, do they meet the requirements in terms of the specifications? Is there any actions that are required to bring them into compliance? I mean, if not, then perhaps you're correct, but, I mean, can we,
Yeah, I think.
definitively determine that before we, eliminate the bond? I mean, I don't see it as being a problem, but somebody should review
Sure.
the trails and please modify the map, the trail map.
Right, right.
And let's do this the right way, and we'll be happy to
Okay.
adjust the
We'll
bond.
do that for the next meeting. We'll make an application and review it all. Is that fine with you, Walter? Sure. Okay.
Okay, I mean, Tom, is that something that perhaps, and I'm not asking that you spend a whole lot of time with it, but it might be worth, communicating with Mr. Houston, just so that, we know as a board that, the trail plans and such are consistent with what's there, and, okay, fair enough? I mean, that's pretty much standard for us, that we would do that.
All right, we'll touch base with Tom over the next, early part of next week.
Sounds fine.
On the other bond, the surety, are you in concurrence with Bob McGee on?
Yes, we are.
So if for some reason you can't make it, you don't have to be here for
Not
it.
to come, yes.
Right, so. I
How's the
mean,
project going?
Going
It's
good.
going well?
Did I hear you guys had a bunch of sales?
We have been making sales over there, yes.
Great.
We're doing,
In
market
Norfolk?
season picking up In Norfolk.
Good.
Yeah, we're doing very well.
Awesome.
Appreciate all the assistance that the planning board has given us.
I haven't heard any blasting yet.
No, no, well, we do silent blasting now.
That's nice. Very thoughtful.
Now, because of the blasting, there was more comprehensive tree clearing required to accommodate the blasting. It's just because of the amount of ledge that's there.
Right.
Which I think was even more than you folks were aware of, right, when you initiated.
We weren't
project.
aware of the exact amounts when we purchased
It's
the
pretty
site, right.
substantial. So, I would just ask that you be sensitive to the fact that there is a lot of tree clearing, and I know the zoning board of appeals, I know they acted in terms of coming up with a scenario in terms of approved tree clearing and replanting, right? Which was pretty similar to what the planning board had outlined, except I think the location for the replanting, I think we were dealing with the rear
Right.
setback, and I think the zoning board of appeals, they expressed a preference for it to be closer to the front, which is a good idea. So I would just ask that you please, pay very close attention to that, because I know there is some sensitivity out there with some abutters in terms of the amount of tree clearing, but I think we all understand why that had to happen because of the blasting and such.
No, absolutely. Right. No problem. If there's any issues, please let us know, but we're following the guidelines and letting everybody know when there's gonna be blasting happening and pulling permits when we need to, so I don't anticipate any problems. It's been pretty smooth.
A red light goes off in my house.
Right.
So Mike Kaliza is here, chairman of our
Right.
zoning board of appeals. Mike, any comment? I think
No, we were very satisfied with the outcome of the hearing that Pulte had before our board. And I think they were satisfied with the outcome as well.
We are. Yeah. We appreciate the support of both boards.
Keep selling. We've already spent your tax money.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you coming. Thank you. Okay, so do we have the decision for the Dunkin' Donuts signage special permit? Do we? Okay, I guess we can bat out of order a little bit. So you guys are all here for the zoning,
Well, the primary issue here is that the Zoning Bylaw Study Committee has reformatted zoning articles. We've also been asked to meet with the selectmen in 2 weeks, the same as your next meeting. And if we don't have a discussion tonight, at some point, we need to have a discussion to finalize everything. And we've been told by the town administrator and so forth that closing of the warrant is imminent, so we're not sure how much more time we have.
Closing, I thought they already closed.
They submitted draft warrant articles, and they are going to allow a couple of weeks for any draft corrections. The package that I submitted to the planning board today was reformatted to match the draft warrant article layout,
Okay.
and we had a meeting last night to try and reformat everything into what we thought was the program. We haven't had a chance to meet with the planning board as a group, and we tried to do that tonight. I don't know that we will. And your meeting on the 26th is the same time as our meeting with the selectmen. So we're just trying to get everything pulled together as soon as possible, because they're going to tell us that the warrant's closed pretty soon.
Yeah, I think the good news is that we've actually already had one iteration, correct? I mean, you had presented some articles. It may have even been your second iteration that I had seen, and I appreciate you sending them to me because I had attended a meeting a few weeks ago, and so, I made a couple minor edifications, and they were reflected, I think, in the next revision. And then subsequent to that, we had some conversation about things like whether or not the medical marijuana, how that was going to be handled. And I think the zoning bylaw study committee, perhaps with some input from the planning board, we may have discussed it at our last meeting. I think the decision was to treat it in a similar way as the adult business district, right, in terms of including it and having a
including
place
it
for
in a
but-
location, and also in keeping the moratorium option as a zoning bylaw action for town meeting, because the Attorney General has determined that that can be moratoriumed until June of 2014. And we've added a definition now in the language that we submitted. So it's really just a question of how do we collectively get together and fine-tune anything, and we're just trying to say that we're probably down to our last 2 weeks in one form or another, and I'm not quite sure how to go through it.
So I think we're going to use that, well, either April 11th, it sounds like we're going to have to use the next meeting prior to April 11th, the 26th, for, does that give you time for a public hearing or no? So I think the concern that we're going to have, the issue, it's just a practical matter here in terms of posting for the public hearing, in terms of how long that's going to take for us to get it posted and have the public hearing, and how that compares with the deadline that you're being told. But I think on most of these, I think we've got pretty good alignment. I know we need to discuss frontage roads, and we have some information tonight, which I think is going to be helpful. We have some information regarding, the existing wetlands and how that plays into frontage roads in terms of how practical they are or aren't. So I think in terms of, some of those decisions, this planning board may be in a better position than we've been in the past to have that conversation. So if you separate frontage roads, I think we're in pretty good alignment. So, maybe, do you want to pick them off one by one? We'll go through them, we can circle back.
Well, I don't know whether you want to do it tonight or not now, 10 o'clock, that's why I'm just asking.
We're usually here till midnight, so it's not a problem for this board.
Well, we should pick them off, because I think some of them are going to go by pretty easily.
I think so.
Especially this first one that has to do with interim drives. And as you can see, this one here, the JA4, because everything else would be deleted. And then the new J4A4. Now, I had gotten with Bob Bullock on this because he had drafted something, but it was still restricting the distance of 250 feet between driveways. And some of these parcels, particularly along the 115 side, the driveways can't be 250 feet apart. So that's where, and Gino, you let us know if this is reasonable, because then we said that they should be along Route 1A, when it should not be located within 250 feet of another such entrance or intersection unless it is aligned directly. Oh, that's for the line across. Mm-hmm. Other drives and streets shall be staggered across. Oh, where in the world am I? Did something get reworded from the way it was written last night? Because there's one for one side of the street and one for staggering on the opposite.
I don't know. This came directly from Bob this morning based on your comments, and the only thing I know is that he added language something of where practicable.
We added where practicable so that the planning board, without having to go before the zoning board of appeals, if the planning board says that's not practicable, you can put the driveway there. That's the best location for it. So that they don't have to be 250 feet from another driveway. And that really gets rid of a lot of these other ones. If you go through zoning and read a lot of these other things, these are all just fine-tuning that whole 250-foot part of the zoning. So it has been, and I will go over this with Bob again, or we'll probably go over it at the
We're
next
going to have
meeting.
another meeting. It's just that we're not necessarily going to have it with the planning board. And,
Yeah.
and that's why I'm trying to say that we're trying to understand how we can collectively get everybody's input, because we're receiving this as it comes around, but we've never had a group meeting.
I think,
Yeah.
to Steve's point, I think there was consensus, Steve,
Correct.
about at the end of the meeting, we all felt that this new language was.
Yeah,
very-
it does make it a little less clear. I think something was changed a little bit
Yeah,
from
it does
what
have to
it
be
was
more-
last night, because one of them was for all the drives on one side of the street, and then the other one was drives that had to do with drives on the other side of the street. So something got. What's that?
The language was clear last night.
It was clear last night, but this looks a little different. This looks as though it got a little more confusing. So we'll just. But that's what we had done in both instances, whether it's on the same side of the street or in relation to the other side of the street. We said that the planning board has the option of saying that's not practicable, that it has to be located in this location.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is we're in a good
Well,
place.
the zoning
as far
bylaw
as-
says where, or where practical.
That's what we are inserting into the zoning bylaw.
Right, it's not,
So that
it's
the
not the
planning
planning
board,
board, it gives
so the
it,
planning board would be able to say it's not practicable to have it there, so that they don't have to go get
it
a
gives
variance.
us, it
Right.
gives us the ability to waive, modify the bylaw.
Not even a waiver, really.
No,
because,
it's modified.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
Okay. So we'll be able to discuss that in a public hearing.
Yeah, yeah.
By April 11th, but we can discuss it further on the 26th. and
Yes.
You can update us, Steve. in
Yeah,
terms of-
because the language did get changed a little
Okay.
bit from last night, so
Okay.
it's a. But I think I explained exactly what it meant originally.
Okay, the building height, I don't think there were any issues with that.
No one had any issues with that one. I don't think.
No, yeah, please let us know, but,
If we want to get a 3-story building down there, we need it, so.
okay, so the next article has to do with, I guess, this,
The C1
segmentation.
district and the subdividing of the
Yeah.
off-highways, and the creating a definition for medical marijuana that will be put in Section B, and one for auto freight storage, which will be put in Section B.
And is this pretty much, it must be pretty much exactly what it was a couple weeks ago, this one, right? I mean, we had this. one
It hasn't wavered much, except the arrangement of how to get the definitions planned and specified and that sort of thing. And Gino's provided us with a lot of backup on this, so that's how where we're at tonight.
On the auto freight storage,
Yes.
yeah, that was the one, and then there was a question about whether
There,
the
there still
fence,
needs
the
to be a
fencing-
conversation with Chris, the Chips place, which I haven't completed yet, but I've inserted what they had in their notes, so we have to do that yet. But that's where we're at the moment.
And these definitions are new.
Yes.
So have you read? Have you read?
I'm
the
looking at it right
definitions?
now, an auto freight
They
storage.
came from Gino by and large.
And
we jumping
except for
past
the
this?
title,
I thought we were on medical marijuana.
Oh,
Well,
that-
it's all part of the same.
Yeah, it goes on to the next
Okay.
page.
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yeah,
I
there's
did
medical marijuana and there's auto freight storage.
compare it, but I think
the medical marijuana one, is there a reason you use the term medical marijuana operation as opposed to treatment center?
Well, because I didn't know which word was which. I had both of them in my list. And a treatment center seemed to be a different program than an operation. So if treatment center is the right word, we're glad to use it. I just didn't know.
That's what's in the state law. the
Okay,
treatment
then that's fine.
center. That-
Also, as of today, the AG approved Burlington's language that was put together by Koppelman and Page.
For a moratorium.
Right.
We
and-
still have that in here.
And also, they disapproved zoning out.
Yes, disallowing.
this allowed you
Yeah.
not, saying that you can't have marijuana.
Right.
So I think by front running this, like you have from the start, it's smart.
So,
Now, how about the fence question? I see you have 6 foot high.
OPEG fence is the description that we went through in packaging this definition for the, and the use and so forth. We said the definition didn't need to have a fence in it, but the use located at the site is a fully screened by an OPEG fence was a concept that has been discussed, and that's where we ended up.
It ended up being 6 feet because 8 feet was gonna
8
be-
feet would
require
potentially make it a
special
structure.
Right.
permit.
Yeah.
Is that true? I mean, oh, no one asked Bob last night about
No,
that.
he was the one that chimed in and said it was a structure subject to setback requirements.
Right.
Did Bob say that?
Yes. He basically,
He's mentioned that once before,
Oh.
and Gino picked up on it and kept us aware of it, so that's why we did what we did.
right.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when Mitch's Auto Repair redid their fence out front, they required them to have structural engineers' plans stamped just to redo the fencing.
Okay.
Because it's above, I think it might be, 8, 9 feet tall.
Yeah, okay. So the other articles are repeating Article 16 and Article 10 from the Fall Town Meeting, which is represented here. And then the last Article W was to keep the moratorium at this moment as an article.
It's good.
Now, the moratorium article, is that the language from Copeland and Page? Because it seems,
I don't know that
I
it
don't
is.
think it is.
It's the same. I mean, Burlington uses KP, so if
yes.
it isn't, we better make sure of it.
Yeah, I think that language needs to be, I just took out all of the dropping off of this article and said it's going to be included, and the language yet to be fully reviewed.
Okay, because I think the language from Copeland and Page has a list of reasons why it's needed, a moratorium is needed, and all that kind of thing.
Okay,
There was a link to it on Kay Doyle's LinkedIn page. That's how I found it
okay,
earlier. And it literally just came out yesterday.
okay.
So
Well, as I say, we just wanted the article to stay alive, and we didn't exactly know what the words were.
I got you.
So Bob, what's the comment there, verify Attorney General ruling
Yeah.
for 3-bedroom units?
Well, in a discussion with Bob Bullock last night, he said that the Attorney General reviewed a program and said that the state does not allow the limitation of 2 bedrooms per unit as language, that they require it to be at least 3 bedrooms per unit. I just flicked it in there because it just came up last night as a surprise situation.
I'm not surprised that they finally caught on to that.
So I just put the comment because I didn't know what to do.
That's
I
gonna-
think that's true for affordable housing. I'm not sure that's true in general. It could be. But the other point is that's already in the bylaw.
The 2-bedroom.
So as long as the way it's written is that way, as long as it's not changing that provision, that's not going to be subject to review by the Attorney General. They're not going to review
Well, I didn't
the
know
existing
that,
language.
so-
What
Yeah,
happens if
right.
someone challenges it?
Well, that's a different thing.
Right.
Okay.
Again, a bylaw is only as good as until it becomes
Exactly.
common law. And
Well, it was Bob Bullock that brought up that he was afraid that it would open the door for the Attorney General to
kick out the whole article,
kick out the whole article
Right.
because of the 2-bedroom limit.
which they have done in the past.
So that's why the question's there.
But just as an example, I once had a bylaw in Sherburne that all it did was create a use table, because
Yeah.
it wasn't a table, and 2 of the uses on the table were, one was a greenhouse, and I think the other one was education facility or something like that. And they were both listed as a special permit use in certain districts. and they had to strike out the P for special permit off the table, but they couldn't touch the bylaw itself because that wasn't before them. So
Check out the P. I don't follow that.
the table had there was text in the bylaw that said a special permit's required for these uses, but that wasn't part of the new bylaw. The new bylaw was only adding the table, and they had to strike out the P that was reflecting the narrative that said special permit, because they said, you can't require a special permit for that, but it's already in your bylaw. We can't make you change what's not already, what's not before us, but we can make you keep it off the table.
Interesting.
That was years ago, but I think that still applies. They
Is that
can't
before
go
the
back.
Dover Amendment? How did the educational
Oh no,
facilities
that was way
survive?
after the Dover Amendment.
How did the educational facilities survive?
I might be wrong on the
Right.
specific use.
That's normally exempt,
Yeah,
religious and educational.
right. That's definitely, you can't require a special permit. No question about it.
So we'll follow up on that. It's just I raised the question because it was raised last night. I didn't know the answer.
I'm curious if that would open up a can of worms, especially if, we're proposing in the, outside the business core district, B1, you've got dense housing that's limited to 2 bedrooms down there.
Right.
So, I mean, they may be seeing it as, family unfriendly, and I don't know.
Well, as I say, I don't know. That's why I threw it in there, because I didn't know how to deal with the comment that came out last night.
Right.
Because you'd have fewer units per acre if you add more bedrooms
Right.
for each unit.
Correct.
Wait a second.
Which
No, wait.
Because
Yeah,
it's
that's
restricted by the number of bedrooms per acre.
More bedrooms, fewer units.
And the 2-bedroom restriction is relatively new. It used to be 1 bedroom. Remember, it was only maybe 4 or 5 years ago that
Right.
it was changed to 2.
Probably moved up from 0 bedrooms, knowing Norfolk.
So just a, point of clarification here. Article U is actually a resubmittal of
Article 16 from the fall town
Article
meeting.
16.
It's exactly the
So,
same.
Exactly the same.
So I think, we just want to be very clear with folks. So the reason in my mind why we should move forward with this in the upcoming town meeting is because we will be better prepared in terms of understanding the protections for abutters in terms of Boardman Street. Gino is studying this, and he's going to be fully prepared during the public hearing to entertain discussions and answer questions and concerns regarding Boardman, which I think was the biggest concern that was mentioned at town meeting by folks who were in opposition to that article last fall. I think unfortunately, in the public hearing that the planning board held last fall, my recollection was there was very little participation. There was much more participation, and at the town meeting, and that's where we heard the opposition. So this go around, I certainly would encourage people, if they're watching the tape here, to participate in the public hearing process for the planning board, so that we can all be on the same page here going into town meeting. The planning board did support that article in the fall town meeting. So I guess, Tom, you had prepared some things. Yeah, Walter.
Yeah, just last night, we also ran these by the advisory board to let them know what was coming, and they were in favor of them, and we're waiting on the final language so they could look at the final language before the town meeting. And just one other comment, Steve knows this, and you probably all do as well. If you look at the letter numbering of these things in the warrant as it's currently constructed, these are going to come very late, either very late the first night or they'll be the second night. And if we're really in favor of these articles, we've got to recognize that it could be a small audience, and we've got to be very careful as to how we position these, and make sure that hopefully we can persuade that small audience to vote for them.
Good point.
Okay, Tom, in terms of the C1 district and the wetlands, I know Gino had some very interesting and informative aerial photographs, I think, with some parcels delineated on there.
Yeah,
And I think Tom was going to try to incorporate the wetlands detail into that document, depending on how many copies we have.
I didn't make copies because it's kind of small and hard to read, but I can at least pass it around.
Is this just an aerial of the area?
Yeah, but with the wetlands shown and the stream and
Oh,
the
wow.
parcel
Oh,
boundaries and buildings.
Cool.
Certainly
Okay,
give
so this
mine
is
away,
the
so-
one that you prepared, Gino, and then Tom, you have a separate one? Is this yours, Tom?
This is the one that Tom.
It just
Okay.
shows the assessors parcel belonging 1A and 115. It shows schematically simply the location where access roads would be required. They're 20 feet back from the roadway, and they have a width of 24 feet. We also, on the plan, added the location of wetlands, which are particularly an issue in the quadrant where Mitch's Auto is. That's the 1A corridor northbound before it hits Pine Street, before it hits 1A. The frontage road in combination with the required setback take up about 44 feet of the lot depth. So it's not a problem on the southern lots. They're reasonably deep. It is a problem as you approach 1A because the wetlands start to close in closer towards 1A. Those are taken from the state Mass GIS. They're accurate but not precise. They show you where it is, but the exact boundary you'd have to actually delineate on the lots. But it gives a decent overall picture, I think.
And, the reason why Tom and Gino have prepared these is because the question of frontage roads, it's come up now in recent weeks. And, I'll speak for myself. One of the quadrants that I thought there may be some merit to the frontage road might have been that quadrant where Mitch's is and such. But, I've been to the area now a couple times in the last few days just to take a quick look at it, and Tom is confirming here that I think it drops off pretty quick, once you stray from Dedham Street, into those properties. It drops off pretty quick. So in terms of a frontage road concept, I really don't see it having merit in that quadrant, which for me personally, that was the only one I thought, it might still have relevance. So, I know the zoning bylaw study committee has expressed, their interest. I think Bob Bullock was involved in that process.
Well,
but has expressed-
Bob Bullock recommended to the zoning bylaw study committee this, and that's how this article arrived.
Which is basically deleting the frontage road requirement
Correct.
from the entire C1, not
That is correct.
not delineating one quadrant from
No.
another. And I had said a few weeks ago that there may be some merit in one or two quadrants, but now in retrospect I look at it and I'm not really seeing that, and I'm just speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for the board. So in terms of deleting the frontage road, I personally don't have a problem with that at this point. I've satisfied myself that, at least in terms of present day, what exists and what I can envision personally, I'm not seeing the value. Now, I look to my colleagues here in terms of their thoughts, their opinions, because, during the public hearing, we're going to need to have that debate with you folks will probably be participating in that, and there may be some concerned citizens and such. And then we're going to need to take our recommendation to town meeting on that particular article. So, so if you're comfortable, with questions, comments, fair enough. If you'd like to wait until the public hearing, which I think will be April 11th, then that's acceptable as well. We certainly want to get everything on the table during the public hearing.
Yeah, it's just that my suspicion is that the warrant articles will be pretty much frozen after the meeting with the selectmen on the 26th.
That's when they're meeting again?
Yes.
26th, okay.
It's a Tuesday, I believe, is
Yes.
the 26th. And that's going to be the same night as your meeting.
If we have to suspend for a minute, we can always go in. We've done that before.
Okay.
Just a comment I would make on the frontage road issue is that J6C, separate and apart from the frontage road, requires linked parking.
Right.
So that, I think, accomplishes a lot of the goal of the frontage road of not having people go back out onto the main road to go to adjacent properties without the rigidity of the frontage road and being in a certain location and certain widths and all that. It's just a little more flexible while keeping the main intent.
I think linked parking is a good thing, absolutely.
And how do you do that without a
Well, I mean, it
road?
may, it may have to be something that we come back, because I'm getting the impression that the zoning bylaw study committee is moving forward even after this meeting to continually update these. That was the stated intent. And unfortunately, there's a lot of cross-pollination or restriction within our existing bylaws, but we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So I don't think that we're facing, a lot of applicants right now
Right.
that it would affect, but if we know that it's coming down the line, I think one of the main things is that I think what we need to do is portray ourselves by virtue of our existing zoning to invite people in. And again, I think it's the numbers that Cole was talking about is, I've seen plans over the years, and some people don't turn them into actual applications because they say, I can't live with this. I'll go elsewhere.
I guess I don't see how, and I'm not a developer, but if I were, and I'm thinking about the site we even reviewed tonight, 242, and the site next door to it, how connecting those two lots would be a good thing for his business, because I'm next door and I want to get gas, and I really don't want to have to deal with struggling to get out onto that traffic on Route 1 or 1A, and I could just zip across the lot. I want to run over and grab a coffee, and I don't want to have to come out of the lot and move across. I don't see how, from a developer business standpoint, it's not a good thing to try to connect. I could see where maybe the requirements as we set them forth might be very restrictive, but the spirit of the intent, which is to give this connectivity, I would think would be something that's desirable for the developer.
Well, you heard the developer of Rocco's Plaza last week saying, I would love to have it connected to the medical building next door. He said that in our meeting. So,
But he's also saying that he's fighting you tooth and nail on putting on a frontage road too.
Well, no, he's already got. He can't go the other way. It's impossible.
But the point is this: is there's also a practical liability issue too. We're the only town that I can think of that the frontage road is on the development property. It is maintained by the owner of that property and their liability for
Holliston has it.
Okay. Good for Holliston,
But to Gino's point, in terms of the linkage, I think we can still
So if we could
accomplish,
do
but
something
not.
that still encourages the spirit, which I think would be a good thing for them, and then maybe be less restrictive, like you're saying, a step towards the right direction.
You mean the linked parking? But I'm trying to figure out how do you get the linked parking without
Out of-
saying.
How to do it.
Well, how do you do it if you don't have a requirement to
You go to the ZBA, and pending the changes, they consider it for a variance. In
Is
the
your-
interim.
Is your concern because of the timing, where you have something developed now and then some years down the road, the property adjacent.
I don't-
To make links.
I don't think we should be paralyzed by the fact of the follow-on, because, I mean, we got to a point when we unraveled the B1 several years back that I think we proved physically you just couldn't get there if you actually complied with all the bylaws that were passed on top of bylaws. It's got to start somewhere.
I mean, even regardless of what our restrictions are, I can see how, at least graphically, it could be challenging on many sites. So I think having it a requirement is sort of a no-brainer. It shouldn't be a requirement because there's sometimes it's just, will make sites unattainable for development. But I could see one reason for wanting to have some language is because you want to make sure people are going to play well together in the future, so that if they do want to connect sites, there's something that encourages, well, you kind of have to work with me to make some connectivity. You know, I know you've been here for 10 years. I know it might require a little bit of grading, but, you know, we sort of it's something that would still encourage them to work together.
And are we saying we don't have that today? And we have some of what Michelle is
yes.
saying, but we need something a little bit.
Well, I'm not sure. Let me just read this one sentence from the frontage road requirement for lots that have not been developed. When adjacent lots have not been developed or the frontage road on adjacent lots is not yet developed, provision shall be made for future frontage road connections with adjacent properties. Reserved strips of land or other measures which preclude or are designed to prevent such frontage road shall not be permitted. In the linked parking provision, it says, where adjacent property has not been developed, provision shall be made for future off-street connections with adjacent properties. Reserved strips of land or other measures which preclude or are designed to prevent such off-street connections shall not be permitted. It's the exact same language. So future provisions so far has been interpreted to mean an easement is required between the two properties.
And the linked
So
parking seems
that
a
would
little better 'cause
continue.
it's perhaps more flexibility, where a frontage road has very real requirements in terms of what it has to be.
Yeah, I think the flexibility, though, is important,
Yeah.
because, and it's related to the land use. In other words, you'd really want to encourage link parking in something like Rocco Plaza, which is a retail, food-oriented facility. And if you had an office building next to it, it would make all kinds of sense to link those. Alternatively, if you have two office buildings standing side by side, the chances of somebody ever wanting to go between them is minimal, unless they were office buildings occupied by the same company. So I guess what I'm saying is, you don't want to make it a universal mandate, but there are certain cases where it would be a good idea to do it. I think it'd benefit everybody.
So in terms of the article that exists, the proposed article that exists, how does it affect, maybe it doesn't in any way affect what you've read to, I mean, because it refers to frontage roads, though, what you've
Yes,
and
that
this
part,
says
that's what
delete
would be
frontage.
deleted.
Okay.
And this J6C would remain in place. So it's already in place. It's not even something we would have to
J6C
add.
being the linkage line.
Yes.
So it's not tied, so therefore.
We might want to look at it, and maybe it needs to be
And I think
tweaked,
it
but
definitely probably needs clarification and
Yeah.
refining to our liking. But, I mean, again, I think we need to deliver that message. And there's a lot of people that will not come to a town if they're saying, I'm not going in front of this for, yes, we may have waived every application for a frontage road, but potential developers don't know that.
Well, they should.
Why?
They're gonna do their homework they're
They're going to review every site plan?
Well,
that
we
goes through
haven't
there?
waived the frontage road. We've waived the construction of the frontage road, the connections. Every place has
You
a
just
frontage road.
cemented my opinions.
I don't think it should be in place as a requirement, but I disagree with that theory that we're gonna scare people away because we're trying to encourage a certain thing, and they're not gonna do their homework to understand that, it's pretty easy to get that passed in this town. I mean, you
I
get
disagree with that assertion.
Well, at this point, is that a moot point? Because
Yeah, we're not
we're
talking
gonna,
about making a
we're
requirement
gonna
anyway.
eliminate the frontage roads. So in terms of a board, I mean, we're gonna have a public hearing and we're gonna, get all the facts on the table and such. But, I mean, am I hearing that the board would support the elimination of frontage roads because, linkage is still going to
However you
exist?
want to
may
call
not
it, that's
be-
fine with me.
It may not be as robust, but at least there's some potential,
I'm in favor
to-
of removing this, but researching the linkage a little bit more and perhaps modifying that language.
Refining it, right. That's fair.
Okay. We'll keep moving with the refinements of this towards, 2 weeks from now, probably having this warrant article pretty much frozen.
Just curious, I mean, if Gino pulled a rabbit out of a hat and there was some language as far as the linkage that everyone could feel good about, including it, would be an option.
Not a
another
problem.
2 weeks.
Not a
we
problem
have
between now and roughly the 26th of the month.
You mean submitting additional language?
Yeah, in other words, we've gotten the okay to get the warrant articles completed within the next 2 weeks, sort of. And so that's why we tried to come here tonight to inspire this conversation, because we hadn't had a meeting jointly between the advocates for what we've got and the planning board.
Not the whole planning board, members of the planning
Yeah,
board,
right.
but not the whole planning
Correct.
board, yeah, okay.
And you don't have the frontage road on the draft yet, do you? Is
We have it deleted.
Yeah. It's in
Where is
there.
it?
It's in the lining here.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
What we did is not make this 16 separate articles for town meeting. We took categories and grouped them together.
Which is, I think, important based on the last town meeting because it was all interconnected.
Have you seen this?
Where'd that come from?
This is what Gino had given. This sort of defines the 4 quadrants that are mentioned in there. The problem that we had last night, and I don't know if it's already been mentioned to you, Gino, but the fact that our zoning book isn't in color, it's not a good idea to try to do it with red. But this is the way it's going to be labeled.
Yeah, that was intended for illustration purposes,
Oh,
but I
okay.
know that that's the page that's going to be redone.
Yeah. So these will probably be in boxes or something with the quadrants labeled, because what's going to happen is in the future there are certain allowed uses in different quadrants.
Right.
So therefore, the allowed uses table is going to be split up into quadrants
Right.
for the
Which
things
is
that
good.
are only allowed in one quadrant out of the 4.
Or if you want to add an allowed use in a certain quadrant.
In a certain
Right,
quadrant,
and not
right.
everywhere. That's fine.
We're not going to do that yet, though. We're individually listing it with the definition of the use, like the medical marijuana treatment center.
Right.
That's listed. The quadrant
the-
that it's located in is listed in the article for the medical marijuana treatment center. But in the future, it will go into a use table.
Or what about like the auto transport? Did we
Same
ever get a
thing. It'll be-
definition?
It's listed in with the.
Residential.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why we got to where we're at in relabeling the off-highway sub-districts.
Can I ask a question based on
yeah.
historical data? The 70-foot setback in the C1 district, was that designed because we were building in the need for a frontage road requirement? Because does it need to be set back that far?
The frontage road was what inspired that setback requirement.
I guess that. So, just, again, I'm not trying to load this up on this meeting, but I would like, some thought given to that. Because, not all of those lots that are on the road are big. So, and that eats up a lot when you have that setback.
Again, I think the whole zoning code needs to be revisited. We tried to keep this to what we heard were the critical issues that needed attention, namely the 2 fall town meeting articles brought forward and where we're at right now.
Right, and instead of, running up against a parking schedule, even like Leo's Landing tonight, if we had more room in the front to move it forward, they could throw it in the back. They could have, employee parking stuffed in the back. These types of things gives it a lot more flexibility.
Okay.
I just, it's a domino effect with this stuff.
I don't think they'd be able to fit everything on that site if they tried to shove parking.
But I'm not
behind,
that
you know.
particular
Yeah,
site.
yeah.
But the point is,
No, I think all of these issues need to be revisited in a fall town meeting larger opportunity to do a holistic look at program.
So I think the reality of the situation, correct me if I'm wrong, the language is going to have to be complete from a warrant article standpoint at the point when the planning board is conducting a public hearing. So that means whatever learning there is, I mean, depending on participation, I hope there's robust participation by abutters. I mean, there certainly was at town meeting in the fall, but that would have to be taken to the floor of town meeting.
Yes.
Because the language, and, you know, and hopefully people understand that there's such compression here trying to get this done in time and get the warrant, you know, finalized. It's unfortunate that it happens that way, but so be it. We'll just do the best we can with it.
I mean, but the sad thing is, and it's, you know, we're all party and guilty of it, is this is not a new phenomenon. It's been going on like this, you know, the hurry up, last minute, jam in zoning changes. Unfortunately, as long as I've even been on, you know, any of these boards, it just seems to work that way. I don't know why.
Well, I think what we're going to try to do is, at least as a planning board, be more proactive and interface with the zoning bylaw. I mean, the point I made at the last meeting is I think you need to do both. You need to, you know, look clean sheet of paper at zoning, at the same time do what the zoning bylaw study committee has been doing, and make changes at the margin, because these are opportunities here for development, and they're opportunities to discourage certain types of development as well, which you know, I think we're all in agreement the residents of the town would just as soon, you know, not see, you know, in the town.
And guys, you haven't had a major rewrite since 1995. That's a long time.
So Bets, in terms of April 11th, do we need to set a time? What do you recommend? Thanks a lot for coming, guys. Appreciate it.
You want to do 8 p.m.?
Okay.
We have something on that day at 7:40, right?
No, that's
No,
on,
that's the week.
Oh, it's a different.
26.
Oh, okay.
Right.
We have nothing else on that day at the moment.
I mean, we could keep the agenda pretty light on the 26th in case we have to run into the selectmen
Well, there's only one thing on
Thanks.
the agenda,
Well,
right?
appreciate
right
it.
now.
Yeah.
Well, unless a bunch of stuff that got postponed to next meeting
Fern
goes to
Ridge.
that meeting.
Not if Betsy doesn't let them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dunkin'
Oh, yeah,
Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yep.
Anyone read the minutes?
Oh,
Did
from
you
last
see-
meeting?
I didn't. I you know, like I got the whole list of them, and I said, "Oh my god."
I got buried with
Yeah,
things at the last minute.
Oh, these
Nice.
are.
Probably why I'm in the situation I'm in.
Well, they got sent out all at once.
You gotta take advantage of
Next
it.
time, Betsy, do one a day, right?
Trying.
4 days straight.
Oh my God.
All right, so special permit application drafted by Gino.
Just one informational item. When Dunkin' Donuts was here, they had advanced the idea that they would put in 3 parallel parking spaces along the edge of the drive-through, and they asked us to come out and look at it. So Dave went out. They have the width, but they don't have the length. They have about 50 feet, so you need either 22, 44, or 66, so they can get 2 parallel spaces, not 3. So
That's even
Well,
good.
just as background, it helps.
I think that. Do they really need 3? I mean, how often do?
I don't know. It's just.
I don't
That
go to
was for
Dunkin'
people
Donuts very
potentially
often,
pulling
but when
over
you have a
for
special
orders.
order,
Yeah.
how many people?
Yeah,
are there
hopefully you
gonna
don't have 3 over there.
Ask
Really,
Michelle.
really
She
obnoxious.
is the
I
ex-
don't do special
No
orders.
special order, okay.
Well, I think these
Kids
were
can get one
actually,
donut, that's it.
you know, I didn't go
One
out there,
donut.
but my understanding was these are before you get to the window, not after. I think they were thinking of them as just additional parking
How old is
space.
the older one?
Oh,
12.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Big
Well,
girl.
we had said that could be
Hey, girl.
useful for the special orders if there's enough room for people to
Right.
turn after placing the order.
No, I think these are before the window.
No, not the window, where the board is, the menu board. I mean, I assume they'll know when they place the order, is somebody gonna tell them at the menu board?
Yeah, there's enough room you could pull over.
Well,
Yes.
usually it's when you get to the window, they say, oh, your stuff's not ready, you're gonna have to pull over.
I would
That's
think
usually
Jeff's
at the
right, though,
window,
that if
not.
They
it's a
have
large
cameras
enough
now,
order,
though.
They would say.
If you have more than 3 kids in the car, they're gonna make you pull over.
I think Jeff's right. When you make the order, if it's large enough, they may say, "Can you please pull over?" That's
Oh,
gonna
oh,
take a
really?
little time.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I've had to pull over myself, and it's usually at the window where you pay. They tell you have to pay, then they tell you to pull over.
That's an egg and cheese.
I will say though, since they're meeting for the first time, and I would agree, for like a month they were not on the street. It was right around the snowstorm. They were out on the street again.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a good job, and they do have
They did
complete
make
new
some
staff and
improvements,
everything
yeah.
else.
And they
but
hadn't moved the sign yet, though,
Right,
so I
and-
do think that will help. But I did notice, like,
They're trying.
Yeah.
Let's see how it works out.
Yeah, I think what we said is they're not doing anything inconsistent with a future rework of the
Right.
traffic
Right.
plan
Right, if
over
they
there,
have
the
to, yeah.
queuing and stuff, so, all right. Let's look at this decision.
I would be, excuse me.
So Hugo's lot is pretty big here, isn't it? Is this Hugo's lot here?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big lot.
Do you have any numbers on that or dates on the plan that he brought in for that sign?
Yeah, that's a
You may
good
want to add that to
point.
condition of approval number 1.
Good. Yeah, there's a date. February 28th.
Oh, okay, you do have the thing about the flaps being removable. That's good.
In here? Yeah.
Number 4, yeah.
yeah.
Tom, on your little schematic here, what is the this green shade?
That's just a background color.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know.
I think it
floodplain
somehow
or
got picked
something.
up off a couple of the assessor's maps.
Yeah, that's fine. I thought it had some
No, it has no
relevance.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the only comment that I have, is that one about making sure you reference the design that he brought in.
Yeah, I picked up a couple of typos too, which I'll correct. But
Yeah, because they can vote on it, I can have them sign the signature page.
yeah.
Okay. So, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the special permit for Dunkin' Donuts, decision number 2013-01.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote.
Could I amend that, but to say with the edit on condition of approval number 1?
Yeah, what is it again you said, Steve?
I just referenced the date of the plan that they had brought in.
The designs presented to the planning board on, which was our last meeting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
February.
28th. Yeah, I'll add it says it on the front, viewpoint sign and awning, but I'll put it in the conditions.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so would you like to revise your motion, Steve?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the special permit for the Dunkin' Donuts at 134 Main Street, special permit number 2013-01, with the slight change to the condition of approval number 1, adding a reference to the date of the plan.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. You have the original for us to sign?
Yep. If you sign the signature page, Gina will have those edits.
So other than the public hearing on this, we don't have any more contestable issues as far as the proposed zoning changes?
What was that question?
Let's use black.
Oh, sure. I mean, between, yeah, black?
Yep.
Between us.
For the warrant article?
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Did I?
That's the pen I had. It's a different pen, isn't it?
No, she was
Same
holding
one?
her own pen.
Oh, okay, here's my pen.
Some magic.
It looks like a blue,
Oh,
it's
a
a
little
planning
nicer
board pen.
It's
It
a
looks
little
like
nicer
Betsy's
pen, but
pen,
I've never
actually.
left my pocket, I guess.
I never bring pens here. Betsy's been penning me for 15 years.
How do you think I supply all the pens to my house?
Right.
You'll click it.
It drives her crazy.
Or probably drive me crazy.
Yes, I have a special pen for him.
Okay, so we're signing vouchers, we have our meeting scheduled, so meeting minutes.
Anyone read them?
No.
Did you just read them while you were sitting there?
I'm just, yeah, I'm gonna
I did
speed
last
read
week.
them.
I mean, last
Do you
meeting.
want to start work backwards or forwards?
I edited last meeting.
Oh, okay, so we can accept those, right?
Yep. Can I make that motion?
Please.
To move to accept the meeting minutes from our Thursday, February 28th, 2013 meeting.
Second.
Did you add edits to it, or are they already done?
I added in Betsy already.
Oh, okay.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Where do we have these? These are old, Mike Finland.
Really?
Yeah.
Fudge.
This is going to Betsy's I hate minutes phase.
Oh, I ended up with 2 copies of this.
Oh, you know. Better than none.
Well, one might be Jeff's.
Oh, is that the one I couldn't find? Nice.
Well, I don't know. It may have been here all along, though. I don't know why I ended up.
Oh, so you blame Betsy, are you?
No,
That's, I think,
I'm
what
blaming you for shoving it over in front of me.
Yeah.
This one's January 26, 2012. Looks okay.
10 cents a page.
We're not in litigation on any of these sites, so we
Is
don't
that
have to
the-
be that
is that
careful.
the threshold?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, if you guys are comfortable, I'm comfortable with Thursday, January 26, 2012 meeting minutes.
motion.
Are you making that motion?
And I'll make that motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
She wasn't on the board at the time. You get that, Betsy? Michelle has to abstain.
And this. All non-controversial sites on this one. So reviewing Thursday, February 16, 2012 meeting minutes, I make a motion to approve.
Second?
Further discussion? Nope. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Michelle abstained.
Was that 216?
That was February 16, that's 2012.
I remember this meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Remember this meeting?
Neighborhood was pretty happy about that.
Yeah. I'm reading it right now.
They wanted to turn, were you here for it? Oh, you weren't. They wanted to turn the entire airport field into a solar panel. Needless to say, the neighbors weren't too happy.
The applicant walked out on us, which was probably did us a
Right.
favor. But
I make a motion to approve Thursday, March 1st, 2012 meeting minutes.
Second.
further discussion?
We just happened to
All in-
choose the one that everyone was reading.
That's all.
Oh, I thought you were taking them in order,
I may
guys.
have to save that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Michelle's abstaining.
All right, my modification, this is my Curatola and his shoddy grass strips.
Steve will save that one.
Steve, a what?
You're gonna save that one.
Oh.
Minutes for that one. Those are the grass on the island
Yeah.
Okay.
sidewalk.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we had some fun with that one.
I hate to say it, but one of the articles in this March 15th one was we granted a permit extension on cottage car wash till May 1st, 2013, and it's not even gonna be enough.
Ooh, yeah.
I would make a motion to approve Thursday, March 15th, 2012 meeting minutes. When you guys finish.
I'll second that.
Okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Michelle abstains.
So we're working on Thursday, April 5th,
Correct.
believe it or not.
See all
Dunkin'
the hard
Donuts.
work we've been doing here, Michelle, before you arrived?
I know.
Actually,
Not easy.
I need an edit on that page, Betsy. Michelle Mayu was incorrectly spelled.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a lot more sense to spell it that way.
That was before I knew you.
And we were still talking about Dunkin' Donuts sign at the time.
Yes, we were.
Almost a
And we
full
were
year
still
ago.
talking about Fern Ridge.
Right.
Now we're
Oh,
still
we've been talking about Fern Ridge for the last 11 years. Literally 11 years, I think it is now, isn't it?
It's
gotta be.
14.
Is it 14?
14, I believe.
Well, that's 4 different applicants.
But, yeah, it
No,
was
no,
two
but Lou
different applicants.
Petrosi is
Oh, Lou
11
Petrosi may be
is
11,
11
yeah.
years.
I remember that meeting.
Right. I make a motion to approve Thursday, April 5th, 2012 meeting minutes, and we're done. That one's done.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you were here for that
But
one.
I wasn't a member.
No, you wasn't a member.
I can't vote.
You weren't a member?
April
No,
15th.
I was just coming to start to get familiar with issues.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
As you can see, they haven't changed.
You
never
still
really-
decided to run for the planning board?
I mean, were you guys, did you
Camera,
guys see
Tom?
this other,
Camera.
issue surrounding the,
Thank you.
the car wash situation?
What was that?
Betsy had a,
An update.
I think you should familiarize yourself, Lonnie.
Oh, I heard about this.
Right.
I haven't heard anything.
I haven't heard anything about this.
No. As predicted, it's up to the next level.
Who's involved with it from the town?
Indirectly, all of us.
Right, but who's road bagging it right now?
It's kind of in limbo.
That's disappointing.
It's gonna be an absolute cluster. You know, I'll tell you something. Mike Bravance was a class act, perfect gentleman applicant, did everything we asked him. Ugh.
Any other business?
I do, like, it did occur to me, and this might interest you, is because it's information that I had forgotten about. It has to do with the reason that easement was overlooked was because when the original applicant came in, which was Joffran, they asked for early occupancy before everything was finished. So there was a whole list of items that had to be done after they moved in, because they had to move out of their old place, and they asked for early occupancy, and we granted it. And that's probably how the easement got overlooked.
So there's nobody from the town trying to work with these two parties to get a mutual agreement going?
We, to the best of my ability, I did that. But at the end of the day,
Yeah, we're still
one of the
on.
parties
Yeah, we're still live.
feels that that he is in a strong enough position, evidently, to proceed in this fashion. So, you know, there's unfortunately, this is a situation where it's two private parties, and I'm not sure that we can really do much more than we've already attempted to do in terms of bringing the parties together.
Are we done?
Anything else?
I just have one question on this issue, is the, correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard it was the position of the building inspector that because the easement wasn't filed on a timely basis over, well, now 12 years or what have you, that once it passed 7 years, there was no ability to compel.
We don't know that. We haven't gotten a legal opinion yet.
Right, but I think they have.
They have. The town has, but
Oh.
we haven't, because it's not a planning board.
Actually, it isn't a
issue.
planning board issue.
So, the town has done that. I I provided a fairly comprehensive summary in terms of the attempt that I had made to bring parties together and try to see if we could
Oh,
come
you'll
up
see
with
that
a,
again, I will guarantee.
you know, a mutually acceptable solution. And we
I
were
mean,
not able to do that, and so then it went to town council, and
Mhm.
it was, that initiative was taken by Jack Hathaway, Bob Bullock. I mean, they needed to get some guidance in terms of the town,
Of course.
and so they've done that. And so that really is not a planning board issue, but I felt that it would be at least worth trying to bring the parties together, you know, as a planning board, you know, an extension of the planning board perhaps, but, you know, I felt comfortable doing that. But at this point, we're beyond that, unfortunately.
Wow.
Yes, it's unfortunate.
He's
I mean,
totally screwed, the guy,
I mean,
you know, he
yep, Yep, yep.
He did nothing but want to, you know, build a nice site in our town.
Yep.
What a mess.
Anything else?
Move to close the meeting at 11:15.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for joining us, folks. Good night.
Is Donna in there? Or is it- Are we out?